Hello everyone. This is Wrestling Among Friends. I wanted to start out by letting you know that we are actually going to be looking at a new format for this podcast. Some advice I took from some people in the Facebook group. So I kind of switched it up a bit. Instead of just kind of the long talk, I've broken it up into segments, different interview segments for different major wrestling promotions, as well as kind of recapping pay-per-views, as well as preparing you for new pay-per-views. So I hope you like the format. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you think. But basically, right now we have 6 segments on here. Okay, we have all of these are mostly going to be monthly recaps of the major shows. So, for instance, we'll start out with an AEW segment with Eric. Then we have the NXT segment with Will. After that, we have a general WWE segment kind of covering the major events of Raw and SmackDown, as well as Survivor Series and TLC, which is covered by Mark. Then we have our NWA segment, which may not be a regular segment, but for now, I wanted to make sure we checked in with our good friend Kyle, looking at recapping what had happened at NWA Into the Fire pay-per-view that had recently happened. So he's going to talk a little bit about that. And then we also have a New Japan segment with our correspondent there, Joshua, who's basically prepping the upcoming Wrestle Kingdom, which is obviously coming up this weekend, first week of January, the 5th and the 6th. So make sure you get a chance to check that out. And then finally, we kind of cap it off with a longer debate segment about a recent article that my friend Jay had shared with me, which talks about the fact that wrestling today is not what it was, that it's worse, mainly due to a lack of storytelling and more emphasis put on athletics and the sports side of it. So it was a really good segment. It was me, Joshua stayed on for that one, as well as Jay came in, and my friend Chris. We kind of had a back and forth forum about that. So as I said, I'm hoping that you enjoy the new format. I'm hoping as I upload it onto YouTube, as you're listening to it, you can actually jump around based on the images. I put the logos up, so if there's a segment that you want to skip or a segment you really want to check out, you can kind of have the freedom to do that. It is running a little long, and so I'm also looking into feedback about that. Please, guys, give me your feedback so I know kind of how to modify the podcast so that it is perfected for you guys to listen and that it is convenient. Finally, I wanted to just kind of add this because I kind of wanted to add my own little segment at the beginning. I noticed that through these conversations, I talk a lot about different podcasts that I check out. So I thought that I would suggest, if you're looking for a new podcast, especially wrestling oriented, to check out. The first thing is the first podcast I would suggest is Keeping It 100 with Conan and Disco Inferno. This is one I came to a little bit late, but it's very, very entertaining. They do a nice job talking about wrestling in general, but they also spend a lot of time. They have interview segments, they have a AAA segment, but they also talk about sports, they talk about politics, they talk about all kinds of stuff. They both play different characters, and I just think it's a lot of fun. So if that seems like something that you would be interested in, I encourage you to check that out. You can get that on most podcast streaming apps. I also want to plug the app that I use, which was actually suggested to me by Eric. It's called Podbeam, and basically it pulls all podcasts from all the different types of apps. So it's kind of a nice one-stop shop app that allows you to listen to all of your different podcasts. So that's my suggestion. Let me know what you think. And without further ado, we will transition to our first segment, which is going to be All Elite Wrestling. All right, so we have Eric here, our expert and analyst on
debatable
on AEW with the AEW segment. So catch us up to some of the highlights that have been going on in AEW the past couple weeks.
Well, this past week we had something really good as far as star making was Jungle Boy against Chris Jericho, which went to, quote, 10-minute time limit draw. The week before, Jericho said Jungle Boy couldn't last 10 minutes with him. So the match ended in the 10-minute time limit draw because he lasted. But Jericho had Jungle Boy in the walls for like a good minute, just in the middle of the ring, and Jungle Boy refused to tap. He refused, and I think you're just making a star right there, making people hungry for maybe a 15-minute match against Jericho where maybe Jungle Boy will win.
Yeah.
We don't know. And I think that's what Jericho's really been doing in AEW since he got there, is just going around picking out guys like, I'm going to make you, I'm going to make you, and I'm going to make you. He did it with Darby, Darby Allin, and obviously his inner circle with Sammy Guevara and Santana and Ortiz. Because I don't think a lot of people outside really knew who they were coming in. But now that they're aligned with Jericho, their stock goes through the roof.
Yeah, and Jake Hager too.
Well, Jake Hager, everyone knew who he was though with Jack Swagger.
But so they don't know him in this form, which I think is probably the best way he's been presented. He was kind of a joke in WWE.
He's a former world heavyweight champion.
Wow. Easily considered one of the worst world champions.
Still counts.
Still counts.
Another thing they've been doing really well is their tag division, which I can put it up there with NXT's tag division, but it is 100% light years better than WWE's.
Yes.
I firmly believe once the Revival's contracts are up, they're coming to AEW. I firmly believe it. But their tag division has been outstanding with, obviously, the Bucks, Pride and Powerful, SCU, Private Party, Lucha Bros, all tearing it up. Best Friends, too, is tearing up. And even you have tag matches that are the main event. This last show that had Chris Jericho on the card, main event was a tag title match. SCU against the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
Which, if they really want to separate themselves from WWE as far as what we're doing better than them, that's something they can really bank on, is that tag division.
What are some of the major angles that have been going on kind of since the pay-per-view?
So the big major angle, in my eyes at least, is, and it's something that kind of continued, maybe even reached, I don't want to say reached its climax because it's still going up, but the Dark Order. I don't know how much you've been keeping up on AEW with the Dark Order, but when they first came in, they were just a random, not random, but just another heel tag team that you didn't know about. But ever since the pay-per-view, they've been building them up through vignettes, joined the Dark Order as this cult, essentially. And it came to a head this last episode where they had an initiation of I want to say it's the Beaver Boys, John Silver and Alex Riley, Alex Reynolds. Yeah. Those who are just basically jobbers. But it was the Dark Order, them, and a bunch of their minions just stormed the ring and beat down SCU, the Bucks, Cody, Dustin, Kenny. And that got a lot of flack. Like, oh, these nobodies are just beating up the biggest stars in the company. Yeah, but there's also like 15 of them. I'm sorry. If the numbers are 15 against, 7, 15 is going to win. Yeah. Strength in numbers is a thing. Yeah. And it ended with them laying on the ground, Dark Order standing tall. So that's definitely an angle that's going forward. That's going to continue to grow. And I really like the Dark Order angle. Yeah, it's essentially a cult.
I thought the vignettes they've been doing has really helped them out. Yeah. It's told more of a story. It's given them more of a reason to care. Yeah, exactly.
It's given them a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What other major feuds are going on?
Obviously, Cody against MJF, where it was revealed MJF brought the Butcher and the Blade in.
What are your thoughts on them?
I like what I've seen from Butcher and the Blade. I didn't know about them before they joined. I have my own theory about why they're actually there.
What's that?
Unconfirmed. I don't think it's really MJF brought them in. I think it's someone else who brought them in. But I like them. And the whole thing of Cody not being able to wrestle MJF, I can see them just milking that for months. Just months. But eventually it's going to come to a head where Cody finally gets his hands on that son of a bitch MJF.
What about other major feuds?
You have Jericho trying to convince Moxley to join the Inner Circle. And I think that's really set up because it's going to happen sooner than later of Moxley getting a title shot against Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Moxley's the number one ranked competitor. So I think they're trying to push it off a little bit and just get the heat on that match. Because I don't think you can just throw Moxley Jericho with no build.
Mm-hmm.
I think if this was WWE, they would 100% do that. Yeah. Just like at a pay-per-view, it's Dean Ambrose Jericho title match. Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
But with AEW, I think they actually want to build to it so it has a satisfying payoff when it happens. Right now, Moxley just hasn't said anything about it, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's no new episode this week because of the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Have another one till 2020.
What
And another big thing is Brandy Rhodes trying to come to recruit people to the Nightmare Collective in the women's division. Looks like she's got her sights set on Chris Sandlander, the newest member of the roster. So she's actually signed. It's not like a special guest type of thing, which I think is good. I think Sandlander is a great worker. Because that's something that AEW needs to build up is their women's division. And call me crazy, I don't get the Nightmare Collective. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they need to work on that a little more because you already have a bunch of heel factions.
Yeah.
Inner Circle, Dark Order, Butcher, Blade, and Bunny, and now a Nightmare Collective. So you got 4 heel factions in there right there.
Yeah.
And you have one face, the Elite. That's about it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think anything they can do to the women's division is going to help, though, because it at least gives it storyline. Yeah. What's your on that? Maybe that answers this question, but what's the area that you would suggest to improve it, and how would you do it?
So one area would be the women's division. I think just giving them more time and having the women have more characters, or just explain what they are, will help. And I think that's something that they will do. It's just a matter of timing. I mean, we think about AEW like it's been around for a long time now, and everything, and how everyone expected, it's going to be so great right off the bat. They've only had like 3 months of TV.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they got to establish all like their main stuff first. The Elite, the Inner Circle, all that stuff. I think you need to establish first, and then you start establishing, a lot of the undercard acts. So I think the whole thing with the women's division, that'll come. It's just, I think we need to be patient with it.
Yeah.
Because one thing we always say NXT does a great job with is the women's division. But you also have to think, they didn't start out having a great women's division. They built that up through time.
Yeah.
So I think you just need to give it time.
Yeah. And I think even like when you compare the two again, like I feel like NXT, like once they did the first draft, when they brought back the brands,
their women's division kind of went down.
And you think about how long it took for them to rebuild that, know, to where it is today. So I think that's a very fair point. Any kind of news out there, and the dirt sheets or anything like that about AEW?
Well, the thing that I just saw today, that obviously Chris Jericho is wrestling Hiroshi Tanahashi at the Dome for Wrestle Kingdom. Apparently, if Tanahashi wins, he's going to try and challenge for the AEW title.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which I think New Japan would benefit from an AEW relationship.
Yes.
And obviously AEW would as well.
Be curious to see if Ring of Honor would try to... It's just, I don't know, like I feel like I know they had a relationship with New Japan. I don't know if
technically they still do.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
But do they really?
Yeah, but you got to expect them, because I don't know what their relationship is like with AEW, but you would think they would try to make a move to try and stop that from happening.
But then again, you also have New Japan announcing their New Japan Pro Wrestling of America stuff. Do they want to go with a company that's already got TV and trying to do their own thing? Or does New Japan just want to kind of keep separate of that and do its own thing on their side as well? It's just interesting to me if that happens, if Tanahashi does challenge for the AEW title.
Yeah.
Maybe that could become a new Wrestle Kingdom featured match, an AEW title match.
That's kind of cool.
Build it up around the world type of thing.
Yeah. One of the things I've been reading about lately is the whole Twitter situation with the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I just saw about that. Matt posted something that they just took a break and just deleted it because it was stifling them creatively, taking away time from their family.
Yeah.
And it's just better for their mental health.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. I think, obviously, being public figures that they're going to get trolls, and obviously have to keep up with Twitter and everything. So I think just getting rid of it will just help them in the long run.
Yeah. I feel like one of my pet peeves right now has been that I feel like people, the whole NXT AEW thing and how toxic it's become, it pisses me off because I was just reading one of the Facebook groups that I'm in for wrestling. They were talking. Someone posted pictures of the hard cam side of one of the arenas that they were running. AEW was, and how it was completely empty. And was like, oh look, blah blah, and I kind of lost it, and I commented, and I just I'm just sick of people trolling either AEW or NXT. They're making it so toxic. They just shit on it, and what drives me nuts about it too is this whole idea of I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people talk about how smart wrestling fans are kind of the bane of the actual profession, and it always pissed me off because
I get that.
Yeah, well, so it always pissed me off though because I was I'm a smart fan and I'm not that way. And it would frustrate me because I'm these are the people that are listening to your podcast. These are the people that are buying your shit. To shit on them it seems counterproductive. But then the more I thought about it, especially recently with the whole idea that we've been clamoring for an alternative for what 20 years now.
Since WCW went out.
Yeah, so 19 years, something like that, 18 years. So we finally get our alternative, and the first thing people do is shit on it.
Is wish it will fail.
Yeah, it's just bullshit. It's appreciate it. Like you said, they've only been going for 3 months. Understand that they're going to make mistakes. Understand that they have to build. That it's not going to happen overnight. And just appreciate wrestling. Appreciate that you have all these options. Appreciate that these I can imagine the amount of shit that the Jacksons were getting, as well as Cody and other people that they have to put up with on the daily, just because some troll wants to shit on them because he hates his own life or whatever, and then feels the need to do that. It's just bullshit. What do you think?
I agree. That's why I don't really use Twitter or any I don't use Twitter. I have a Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it.
Yeah.
I don't own Instagram. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have Snapchat or any other social media platform. And I just rather stay away from the toxic behavior of most people. So I'm completely behind them getting rid of their Twitters.
So
completely behind it.
Kind of on that same point as we wrap up. A lot of people, there's a lot of different views on AEW right now, and there are people who are for it, there are people who are against it and whatnot. Why do you think someone should be watching AEW right now?
I think they should be watching it if there's someone who, like you said, had wanted that alternative to WWE, and the same basically outline of a WWE show: promo in the middle, little match, promo, match, backstage segment, another promo, and then maybe a good match. I mean, you will still get that with AEW because it is a television show. They do have to promote angles and everything, but not most of the time. You're going to get great matches night in, night out. Yeah. And then the story will come with those segments, like the promos. They will come. Obviously, there are people who like the in-ring work more than the storytelling work. So that's definitely this is definitely the show to check out.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of tag team wrestling, obviously, watch that.
Yeah.
100%. If you're a fan of not being really talked down to by the commentators, if you're the type of fan that does not love it when whenever Sasha Banks comes out and Michael Cole screams, "It's boss time!"
Yeah.
Every single time. That doesn't happen in AEW. You've got pretty much the repeat of announcers right now: Excalibur, JR, and Tony Schiavone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't like to have your intelligence insulted by WWE, then you should definitely check out AEW.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. I think that that's a big point. Is like I feel like the WWE consistently shits on their own fans, and
100%,
and you know, it basically says this is the meal, you should eat it because it's the only meal here. But I feel like at least AEW consistently values and shows that you know, they like you said, they don't talk down to them, they don't shit on them, and I think that that's definitely a key point.
Yeah, they treat their fans as professional wrestling fans instead of how WWE treats their fans as sports entertainment fans, and there is a difference.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, I appreciate you, Eric, coming on, doing your segment. Looking forward to recapping in January, and hopefully we'll just go from there. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, I am here with Will, our correspondent for NXT. He's going to give us a recap on some of the major events that have happened the past couple weeks, as well as his input on the show as a whole. So, Will, what you got?
So I guess we're going all the way back to Survivor Series, and I am old, so it's kind of hard for me to remember every single thing that's going on. But I do watch weekly, so I can pretty much give you an overview of, like, you know, the stories they got. So the main story they got going on for them in the men's division is they're kind of in this situation where they have like 4 to 5 people, I think, that's in the main event picture right now. Where they have Keith Lee, who after Survivor Series, Survivor Series put him on the map. Really, everybody took notice, including the higher ups, all the way up to Vince McMahon, which is good for him, because I felt bad for him for the longest time, because I always thought he was phenomenal even from the day he began, but I feel like he started to slip down the card for whatever reason. And after Survivor Series, you know, it seems like somebody upstairs was like, why are we not utilizing him better? So they've been doing that. So that's good. So he's won. Finn Balor, obviously, he had the title match against Adam Cole this past week, which was really good. And we got Tommaso Ciampa, who was always great. Guy, I can't say enough good stuff about him. And who am I missing? Matt Riddle's up and down. I don't really know what they're gonna do with him, because of, the crowd loves him. They chant at him, Riddle, Riddle. He's using all the Goldberg's moves, so that's interesting. That's an interesting side story they got going there. So yeah, that's good stuff. Finn Balor, Adam Cole tore it up last week as expected. Actually, I wouldn't say they tore it up. It was okay. It wasn't the best thing since sliced bread. Opened up the show last week. It was a solid match, but I've seen better in NXT. I don't know if it was the styles clash or what it was. I feel like they have not clash, because I feel like they have a very similar style, because they're both like small guys who came from Japan. But it was good. It was a good match. I would say watch it. The highlight of last week's show, though, was, I think everybody was talking about, was the women's match for the championship. I love they made you think that Rhea Ripley was a contender. However, one thing that I didn't like about that is they didn't tell you that they're leaving out that Rhea Ripley has faced Baszler before and got choked out. They're leaving that out. They're just trying to make it like it never happened, kind of like the Triple H and Undertaker. As far as fans are supposed to know, they only wrestled twice in back-to-back years at WrestleMania. Forget about WrestleMania 17, where Undertaker just beat the shit out of Triple H. But whatever. That was the highlight of the show, the main event, which it should have, because it was the high spot, the high point of the show. And they went out and they tore it up. I've had Rhea Ripley since, and I thought when they put the UK title on Rhea Ripley, I thought they made a mistake. And now I'm like sitting here like I was the one that made a mistake because obviously, in my opinion, in WWE, she's eclipsed Toni Storm in popularity. Toni Storm was the bigger name in the beginning, but now I think Rhea Ripley's the WWE's bigger name. So that's fine. But it was a phenomenal match. I was say check it out. The psychology, what they were doing, the Avalanche Riptide for the finish. Sorry if you didn't watch it and I just gave it away. But
that's your job.
Great storytelling. Huh?
I said that's your job.
Yeah, great storytelling there. Yeah, great storytelling there. I loved it. Everything else in there, just kind of like Io Shirai. I don't know what they're doing with her. I love her character. I love the like crazy character that she plays. I mean, I love her in-ring stuff. But I don't really know where they're going with her. I don't know whether she's trying to keep her in the main event picture. I feel like she's a featured player. She's always there, but I'm not sure the direction they're going with her. So she's kind of I forget. Did she wrestle? I think she wrestled Kaden. Was it Kaden, that the black girl with the dreads?
Yeah,
I think that's who she wrestled. Yeah, who I am looking out for her. I think she's got a crazy upside too. She's super athletic. She does some crazy things in there, but she's super green.
Yeah, no, I like her too.
She keeps learning.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said I like her too. I think that they keep putting her out there to get squashed, but I feel like her reaction is strong enough that warrants them kind of investing in her. Because when she comes out, like, she usually gets a good pop.
Yeah, she usually has a strong showing. I wouldn't say she's getting squashed. She usually does okay in the matches. She just loses.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. When was the last time she lost? Or, I mean, won?
Huh?
When was the last time she won a match?
She hasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
She hasn't. I don't think she's ever won one.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't think she's getting squashed because I think she's getting the ability to show that she can do some stuff, but she's definitely not considered upper echelon. But which is tough because that women's division is so damn good.
Speaking of, what's your thoughts on the whole Tegan Knox, Dakota Kai, that whole situation?
I liked Dakota Kai, so I'm happy that they turned her. At first, I was kind of worried because to me, she's a Bailey type of character, always smiling, and I worried that she would get buried. I thought what they were gonna do initially was they were gonna turn her heel, and then have Tegan Knox kill all her momentum, which they haven't done. I still think that's what's gonna happen. I think Tegan Knox is gonna come back eventually, and they're gonna have their match, and Tegan Knox is just gonna beat her, and that's gonna be it. I don't know. Hopefully not, because I like Dakota Kai. I think she's solid talent.
Yeah.
I think Tegan Knox is the one that out of Team Kick, I think Tegan Knox is the one that they're looking at as being the star. But I think Dakota Kai can be a solid hand as well.
Yeah.
So
I think it's been a while since we've seen a kind of that chicken shit heel, which she's playing kind of. And I hope that she kind of plays more into that, because I think that's kind of where we could really use that character, because I don't really think, like I said, I can't think of anyone really in the division or in NXT as a whole that's kind of playing that chicken shit heel, which is, a great tried and true persona to play.
We talk about that a lot, because that there's just too many tweeners. Nobody wants to really be the heel, the chicken shit heel, or just the heel in general. Yeah. So I agree with that. That's a good character, where she's always like, she's running, getting out of harm's way all the times. They got something with that. They should definitely keep that going.
Yeah. What about any news or anything in the news that you picked up that's going on?
There wasn't really. I think Shayna Baszler is the hottest. I don't even want to call her a free agent anymore in terms of WWE, because to me that says that like there's only two brands, when I think they're not trying to push it as there's three brands. So I was reading somewhere, would a move be lateral, or would it be a promotion? And if it's lateral, how do they explain the move? Yeah. And if it's a promotion, then they're still shitting on what NXT is. Yeah. So it's kind of, she's in a really crappy place. I read that they want to, like, she's star power in NXT. However you feel about her, she is star power. We know what she can do, she can get the job done, and she's got the big win at Survivor Series. But they wanted to work with Becky Lynch, so she's probably going to be moving. That's why she dropped the title. Also, they weren't anticipating Rhea Ripley to get over as well as she did, as fast as she did. So I was reading that they weren't anticipating taking the title off of her so quick. So, I mean, not quick. She's held that thing for
over a year, 400 some days.
Yeah, some crazy amount of days with the combined ranks. So just the last reigns over a year.
Yeah. I was recording with Mark earlier, and he was saying that his prediction is that she's going to come up as the in the Rumble and win the Rumble, and then that's how she's going to challenge Becky. Yeah. Which I guess would clear up your question about how are they going to make it look for the lateral move, like what it would. I mean, that would make sense because then she could challenge for whoever she wants, and then she could move to the roster that way.
Right, but NXT is still losing the star, and that's one of the things that before we started rolling, he talked about how they don't have the character development down there is lacking. It sucks. It's for those guys down there, it's great with the move to USA because I'm sure it brings more money. Hopefully, it brings more money and more exposure, but it also makes WWE say, "Well, these are our stars. Let's just put them out there for everybody to see instead of like what they did before the bills to get people over." And a lot of those guys that already made names for themselves in the indies, the Adam Coles, the Finn Balor's, the Keith Lee's, all those guys are the ones getting the showcases. I like Trevor Lee. He's another one. I don't know where they're going to go with him. At times it seems like in the beginning it seemed that he was the one that they wanted to push out of the stars that did the challenge, whatever it was last year. Yeah. That what's his name? Smiley face. They quit until he won it.
ACH.
But it seemed like, Trevor Lee was the one that they actually wanted to push. We haven't seen much from any of the other guys. We see Bronson every once in a while, and the dreadlock guy. I can't even remember all these guys' names. He's always smiling too. He's from Seattle. Black guy.
Oh yeah,
anyways,
Swerve.
He's really good. Swerve. That's his name. They changed all the names, but I can't remember. Yes. Yeah, he's solid. He's solid, man. He gets a good reaction from the crowd too. But so there's a lot of guys that they just need that extra push. I think that NXT will benefit from doing those kind of like tournament things that they do to like bring somebody up because they don't do them very often.
Yeah.
So that would be something to benefit. But overall, man, I'm impressed with. I love NXT. That's my favorite show out of everything on TV to watch out of all the wrestling shows because I'm a big production guy, and WWE's got the best production out there, hands down. Nobody, in my opinion, nobody can touch it. So the production's good. The in-ring is solid. But again, like we talked about before, the character development is lacking. They just kind of give you the people that are already stars, and then everybody else just kind of gets squashed. So.
Yeah, I feel like kind of in that point of like, where do you is that what you see as kind of like where they can grow as far as where their weakness is?
Absolutely. I think that they need to focus on the talent that they have. Mm-hmm. Like again, another one, Kushida, huge name in Japan. Not huge, but a big enough name in Japan that he comes over and you should be able to do something with him. And they keep giving him wins. He's in a feud with Trevor Lee right now, which is okay. Mm-hmm. They had a good match on NXT this past week. But he's somebody that like he comes in the door with. They pretty much roll out the red carpet, and then somebody like Raul Mendoza, who's been there for forever. Mm-hmm. People are like, who? But he's there all the time. He has matches all the time. Usually he loses. Mm-hmm. Could benefit from, just beating somebody, I guess. You get the guy under contract, do something with him. Who else is out there that I see? The two, the Mean Girls, Aaliyah and, I can't even remember the other girl's name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember the name. Yeah, the Mean Girls team, they got the old Lake Cool girls, they got going. Vanessa Bourne, that's her name.
Yeah.
They got those girls, and they're pretty much, they just come out there to squash. And I misspoke earlier. You know who God, I am really old. I can't think of his name. Io Shirai. She faced Santana Garrett. That's who she
Yes.
wrestled this
Yeah.
past week. Who Santana Garrett's a phenomenal talent.
Yep.
She's been everywhere. She's been everywhere.
Yep.
She's been champion everywhere she's gone, and so they could definitely benefit from having her in the division as well. So I think that she shouldn't have gone up against Io Shirai in her first match to lose.
Yeah.
Because she's a recognizable face. She should have been. She should have been getting the win. There should have been like the character development. But on the other hand, some people might say she's kind of generic. So whatever.
Yeah, I think that I feel like what they need to do is, because I feel like the draft, whenever they end up doing the draft next time, like post WrestleMania, I feel like they have to do a lot of moves to change things up in order to make NXT more of a brand. But I feel like until then, what they need to do is they need to, like you said, like invest in who they have and build them up. Because I feel, and which is sad, because I feel like, you and I have watched NXT for a long time. I feel like that's something that they could, that they did well in the past, and I feel like they haven't been doing it well lately. Like, just do a couple of packages on the different characters. Like, I don't know why I should be cheering for, what is it, Damian Priest and who's the big guy from Sanity? Killian Dane. Like those two guys go back and forth. Or what about the guy that was in War Games? The big guy.
Dijakovic. Dominic Dijakovic.
Yeah, I always call him Dijakovic from Ring of Honor, but he's another one. It's like I know nothing. Like they throw all these characters. Swerve is another one. Like there's all these characters that obviously have their indie following. Even like you said, Kushida, but they don't have any story. Like who are they? Like I mean like I know them from the indie scene, but I don't know who they are in NXT, and I don't know why I should care. Like you mentioned, Raul Mendoza. I have more investment in him because I've seen his character consistently lose, but come out with fire and then win. Like I would rather cheer for him than I would like a Killian Dane or a Kushida, because I know at least something about him. So I definitely think that's kind of their weaker, and not so much with their women's division, because I agree. I think I told you before we got on the recording that I feel like their women's division is by and far the best that's out there, and I feel like their women's division is they do a lot to create characters, and I think what my theory is what needs to happen post WrestleMania is they need to take all of their made stars, except for maybe a handful, and ship them off to Raw and SmackDown. And then what they need to do is they need to pull a third of their roster from Raw and SmackDown as both established talents and talents that never really got a shot, that already have characters infused, and then you have them help build up the next set of superstars. Because I feel like that's the only way to get kind of a little bit more of an even field of investment and interesting characters, as well as more veterans to help the younger kids learn kind of the way of things.
Sure.
I
think you're right about that, man. I think though in the draft they can't just move people from NXT, like you said. They have to move people down there if they want them to.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's a third bird. Yeah. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that. They definitely got to move some people down there. Because if they want to go down there, let them go.
I feel like you have like, if you like, okay, like for instance, an Adam Cole, or even the whole Undisputed, they're ready to move. They've been ready to move. So you move them, but then you throw like, I don't know, I don't want to say Kevin Owens, but someone like that, like of that caliber. You send Alexa Bliss, you send Dolph Ziggler, you send or Cesaro. Like there's all these characters that want to go there. You send those characters. You send your I'm trying to think of some other characters that haven't really been featured. I don't know. You send your No Way Jose's and your who was the guy that did all the
Apollo Crews.
That as I was gonna say, Apollo Crews. Those characters. You send that guy, Titus O'Neil. Send him down. Like those are characters that could use a renaissance, like a rebirth of character, that then they could continue to, if nothing else, help those younger talent. And then if they get over, then you send them back to the main roster in a new role, Or I shouldn't say main roster, Raw or SmackDown.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that in everybody's main roster now. That's what we're letting. Yeah, man, they just gotta figure out what the only thing that I worry about is, I think the thing that we always worry about is these guys going up there. And so the question I pose to you, what do you think the difference is? Because we watch these girls like Shayna Baszler, for instance. I haven't seen her have a bad match in NXT.
Mm-hmm.
When Sasha and Becky were down there, they were having good matches all the time. But you put them three in the ring and on a big stage, and they stink the place up. Yeah. What do you think the reason is for that? Because I have my theories.
What's your theories? Let me hear your theories.
My theory is the overproduction that happens on the main roster. I was reading recently somewhere how there's some news in the dirt sheets. I keep my head in the dirt sheets pretty often. I try to keep up with the stuff. Is how in the main roster they want the mattresses are overproduced. They want you to tell them what move you're gonna do, what part of the ring you're gonna do it in, and at what point in the match you're gonna do it. While in NXT they kind of have the free reign. They're told to just go out there and tear it up.
Yeah. No,
I think that. I think they got to get away from that, man. God, that's when you allow talent to. These guys are professionals. That's their job. If somebody came in and tried to tell me how to do my job at every second of it, every point, it might drive me nuts. Yeah, and I'm sure that's some of the frustration that these guys are having.
Yeah,
and you hear a lot of people talk about the creative. Like, I'm tired of them handcuffing me and telling me how to do this, where I need to be. And so that's my theory on why you go up there and you see, like, they have great matches on the main roster, but not as often as they do in the main roster. Again, we're still set in that main roster, but they have great matches on Raw and SmackDown, just not as often as they do in NXT. And I think it's partially due to the overproduction.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, I listened to I've already talked about it a couple of times now. I feel like a broken record, but I've been listening to the podcast Busted Open that Bully Ray is a guest on, and Mark Henry, and it's pretty solid. But one of the things that Bully Ray said about TLC was he said he wants to know who the agent was for the TLC match with the Kabuki Warriors and Charlotte and Becky, because he said that there was so much that did not make sense. He said there was so much that was done that was not that just didn't have any reason behind it, and he said that it was so lacking of reason that it was just a bunch of spots. And he said, that's that's part of the reason why he felt it fell short, because they were putting their bodies on the line. They were doing some crazy stuff.
Well, Kyrie Sane got knocked out.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice. I watched it. I know we were talking about NXT, but let's go there since we switched that role. I didn't notice it. I didn't notice the spot where she got hurt when I was watching it. Didn't notice, Kyrie Sane's a phenomenal talent. But I noticed in the match, I was like, oh, that did not look good. Like the spear spot. Like, what is she doing? And then I was like, she must have got knocked silly somewhere in there. And then, everybody was, the next day, everybody was like talking about it. It was like she got, and I don't know what Charlotte was doing, but Becky was trying to protect her. There was somebody got it on video where Becky actually, I think it was right after the spot where she got hurt. He rolled her under the ring.
Yeah.
And then you got Charlotte in there just kicking the shit out of her later in the match.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it goes back to your point earlier, which is, I think you're right. I think that everything about Raw and SmackDown is the overproduction. It's the matches, it's the storylines, it's the promos, it's just too much, and it's fake, and it doesn't work. And when you look at NXT and you look at, I was talking to a buddy earlier about NWA, and you look at what they do, which is promo heavy. It's sink or swim. And the people that sink, and they're gone. And the people that swim, really swim and connect with the crowd. And it's the same thing with AEW, where they're allowed to go out and cut their promos and do it and say what they want to say. You have a lot of people that swim and some people that sink, but ultimately, at least you got it out of the way. And how can you tell someone that is their character how their character is going to behave in a situation. Like I always am baffled by that,
Sure.
and I think that's the go-to with everything with Raw and SmackDown. So yeah. So final question: why should people be watching NXT right now?
Oh man, NXT to me is the if you want to go and watch some solid matches by some solid performers, NXT is the place to be. Don't get me wrong, there is some indie stuff out there, but if you're a WWE diehard, which there are a ton of people that even one of our guys, hey Mark, he's a WWE diehard who doesn't watch NXT, and that just like why, dude? NXT is the best thing going in my humble opinion if you like wrestling.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of solid matches, not being overproduced, and just professionals going out there and doing what they do best, you gotta watch NXT.
Yeah.
Hands down, best product WWE has as far as that goes.
Cool. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you being on with us, and we'll connect soon. All right.
All right.
All right. Later.
We'll talk later. Bye.
All right, so we have Mark here, our designated SmackDown correspondent and occasional Raw correspondent as well, who's going to give us kind of a breakdown on all the major things that have been happening between the pay-per-views, Survivor Series, TLC, as well as kind of the major highlights from SmackDown the past couple of weeks. So, what you got for us, Mark?
Yes, thanks for... Sorry, I'm getting a phone call.
The other thing about Mark you have to understand is that he is very popular. So there are constantly people asking for him, and as he tries to circumnavigate the situation with his cell phone.
All right, we're good. I had to throw my smartwatch and my...
We told that girl, check it later. I'm recording right now. This is important. All right, go.
Okay, so starting from Survivor Series, I would say that it was a very solid pay-per-view. One of my favorite pay-per-views of the year. NXT has really made their presence felt in that pay-per-view and in the build-up for it. If I can remember correctly, a couple matches that stood out to me were the triple threat match between Roderick Strong, AJ Styles, and I believe it was Nakamura,
yep.
Who put on quite a match, and it was a good triple threat match that and NXT won based on some hijinks, we'll just call them that, with the Undisputed Era. And that was definitely a match worth watching. I would say that the main event of the Survivor Series pay-per-view underwhelmed. I thought I don't know if it was because of runtime or what, but just something just didn't click, and you had three phenomenal women wrestlers that just were supposed to tear the house down, and all it did was establish Shayna Baszler as a major threat to come in the women's division. Let's see, what was the other one? Then there was the
the men's match.
There was a tag match, and Sean, if I'm wrong on this, walk me through it. There was a men's tag match that I thought was solid. There was some good spots between Ricochet and some of the other wrestlers in there. And then I'd say the women's match, the very first match I believe on the show, was the women's 5-way. And I was really impressed. I have not seen a lot of those NXT wrestlers, and they tore down the house, yes. Rhea Ripley included. And we'll touch on her later because that's kind of... a little bit more into the future on that, and anything else that really stood out in Survivor Series.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned the women's match, and the women's match underwhelming, which I think everyone agreed with. Do you think the biggest complaint about that one was that they felt like the match should have just been Baszler and Becky Lynch, and that Bayley added into it, it just kind of maybe threw it off a little bit? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's truth to that, or do you think that it should have been, that it was fine, or what are your thoughts?
I thought it really should have been Baszler versus Becky. It was all about the build-up between Baszler versus Becky, and just because Bayley is a champion, SmackDown Women's Champion, she was inserted in the match because of that. But honestly, I don't think the chemistry, it just didn't flow right. There was just something off, and I don't want to blame Bayley's work rate as part of that But like even in the build up to the match, I remember that Bayley was kind of the third wheel in that situation. And how are you supposed to take a third wheel seriously in the build up?
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't. And I think she was the one who took she took the fall.
She took the job, yeah.
She got tapped out, I believe, to Baszler's. I don't remember what the name of her submission is. But yeah, I felt like the match would definitely be better if it was just Becky versus Shayna. And I think they're building up. It could be a WrestleMania program. It could be something else but it obviously after the match and the assault after the match, I do remember that they're saving that for some other reason.
Yep. Yeah. So what about kind of catching us up with some of the stuff that was going on in TLC? What was going on there?
So TLC, there was not a lot of build up to that pay-per-view, I remember. I think they literally built up the card in like a week or two. And it wasn't a poor pay-per-view, but I do remember there was two matches that really stood out to me. And I can't really say, I mean, there was 3 matches, but the main event, again, underwhelmed a little bit. Okay, so I would say that's the women's tag match, which was the main event for the women's tag titles between Kabuki Warriors and Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. It was a good match. There was a lot of good spots, but I think Kairi Sane was legit injured, and that kind of hurt the match itself, the quality. And I don't remember how she got injured exactly, but I think she had some sort of concussion
in the match. Monitor is what they're saying, the TV monitor.
Yeah, that spot looked brutal. I remember that. Yeah, there were a lot of brutal spots, and then there was the rope. I remember that. The rope and the ladder tying Becky in there. Yeah, there was a lot of crazy stuff they did in that match. I mean, it was a good match, but I felt like there was other matches on the card that outshined that match.
Like what?
Well, I thought, again, this is another injury type situation, but Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy was a really good match, and I think it could have been better if Aleister Black did not have a possible broken nose during the match. And I don't even know what his diagnosis is right now because we didn't see him on Raw last week. And another match, this is my favorite match of the night. My favorite match of the night, and I'm also a big New Day fan in general, but New Day versus Revival in a ladder match for the tag titles. There was just they just worked so well off each other. That match was just, in my opinion, it's one of the matches of the year candidates. New Day just always puts on, New Day and Revival in general just always, they work so well off each other. It's I don't mind seeing them match up time and time again, and especially given the ladder match dynamic with the titles online.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I listened to a lot of podcasts and I listened to a lot of reviews of TLC. I didn't actually watch TLC. It came down to the like you said, the underwhelming build to it. It's funny because I feel like consistently with WWE pay-per-views, I feel like the underwhelmed pay-per-views tend to be the ones that tend to surprise. Because there tends to be a lot of matches that are really enjoyable, but I also think that's more of a reflection of the talent that they have, that talent can be given nothing and they'll make it work.
I agree.
But I feel like that extra icing on the cake is the investment of the fan, and the only way you bring investment from the fans is good storytelling. And I think that they don't always pull that off. And so I think with this, with this specific situation, I remember looking at the card and being like, I'm not gonna. I think because I'm so consistently dependent on WWE kind of disappointing that I was just like, I'm not gonna invest in this to have the chance for it to be amazing. Whereas I feel like the stronger chances for it to be not amazing, and so I didn't check it out. But that said, a lot of what I heard from the podcast I listened to was exactly what you said. The highlighted matches were by far New Day's ladder match, Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black, and then some cool moments in the women's match, but not really feeling it as a main event. It's good that I have a good correspondent on SmackDown here, because clearly you're in line with what a lot of the big league critics would say. Um, what other stuff is kind of as we're kind of catching up people, especially for what's going on SmackDown? What are some key things for people to be aware of that's going on?
King Corbin and his reign, as silly as it is, it's actually getting him a lot of heat with the fans, and he's doing great in that role. And the more spotlight on him right now with Dolph Ziggler and playing his role, and who were the was it Revival?
Bobby Roode was there for a little while
Bobby
before he
Roode.
got fired. Or not fired, but wellness policy violation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, him as well. Yeah, I like, and then he has his own personal security, and it just feels special when he comes out. And I think he's someone to watch for in the new year.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else that's kind of a highlights from SmackDown that you want to highlight?
Yeah, and also I would say that Daniel Bryan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's going on there? What's the story there?
Being the yes man.
Yes.
As I point to the sky, no one can see it. He is back to being the yes man that he was before, being the plainest champion, and with Eric Rowan and all that. But it's great because now he gets the spotlight back on him, and he's part of looks like part of the SmackDown main event scene for the near future. And his rivalry with Bray Wyatt and the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, is something to definitely watch out for coming in 2020, where I think they could tear the house down in the next match. And then I think the next SmackDown main event is a triple threat match between The Miz, Bray Wyatt, and King Corbin. And I think that'll be a good match, but ultimately I could see Daniel Bryan walking away and continuing his feud with the guy who supposedly made his life a living hell and cut his hair and got him back to a changed man that he was, that he hadn't been in a long time.
What are your thoughts on this whole Bray Wyatt / Fiend thing? Because that was kind of, I know with TLC, the match against The Miz, people weren't really sure what to expect, who was going to come out, and it was actually Bray Wyatt. It wasn't The Fiend. So what are your thoughts on kind of using those two different kind of dual personalities?
I think it's interesting from a fan's perspective. It's like, it makes me think of there's not a lot of characters that can pull that off, or wrestlers that can pull that off successfully, and I think he's doing a good job of that. And some people have said, or I mean, in promos, that Bray Wyatt is more dangerous than The Fiend. Just because of how sick in the head he is for putting puppets in Miz's daughter's crib and breaking into his house, and yeah, it's a different dimension because they're playing two. It's the same guy playing two different roles, and he's I think he's excelling in both roles, and it's something to definitely watch out for in the future. And it's one of my favorite parts of SmackDown is watching either Bray Wyatt or the Fiend Bray Wyatt do his thing.
So what would you say is the one area that SmackDown could improve on? What's one of the things you would like to see kind of happen?
I'd say more opportunities for undercard wrestlers. I feel like somehow it gets kind of lost in the. So there's like a main event scene, and then there's like a undercard, and then there's like a job. Basically, there's like a classes, and it feels like some guys, they try to break through, and Mustafa Ali is one of them. There's like a number of examples. And they're like stuck at where they're at, and you can kind of see that from fans. There needs to be more of the glass ceiling, feeling like it could break at any time on SmackDown, as they called it the land of opportunity. And I don't know, it started as like, so when Fox started with SmackDown, it felt like there was this open, like it was this whole refreshing thing, and now it feels like a little bit of the same it was before, and yeah, just more wrestlers kind of breaking through.
So like push Ali, push more of those undercards. That makes sense.
Yes.
So 2 quick things before we wrap up. First, Royal Rumble predictions. What do you got?
So from the men's Royal Rumble, I'm going to say, I'm just going to say that CM Punk returns and wins the Rumble.
Whoa, big predictions.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's, I feel like his spot on backstage is to get people to know say, but I feel like his true calling is to be a wrestler again. And he has not feuded with some of the guys in WWE now, and the crop of wrestlers is more talented than ever. So I'm going to go with CM Punk as a complete wild card to win the men's Rumble. And then the women's Rumble, I'm not really sure on this one, but somehow I'm going to say Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Because I feel like they're building up to Becky versus Baszler, and I feel like the way to get the most eyes on the product is WrestleMania, and it's Baszler versus Becky, and Becky is going to hold her belt all the way until WrestleMania.
Yep.
Until she faces Baszler.
Yeah, I think that's good predictions. So. Final point: why should people be watching WWE right now?
I would say the match quality. For example, I would say the that gauntlet match was really sweet. Last Monday on Raw. So wrestlers like Ricochet, like Humberto Carrillo, like tearing down the house, and there's also the programs with Bray Wyatt. There's also Seth Rollins and the AOP. There's a lot of good stories going on right now, and I feel like they're going to play out all the way into the Rumble, and it's something to definitely keep an eye on.
So one more thing, Mark, before you go, I wanted to get your information. Any information out there about kind of backstage stuff or news that the listeners need to hear?
Yeah, so I'd say the signing of John Morrison is returned to WWE, and we don't know what brand he's going to show up on, but I personally am hoping that he shows up on SmackDown and continues his on and off on whatever feud or tag team with Miz. As long as he has, I think Miz needs something new to do after the Bray Wyatt thing, and I think John Morrison might be the person to bring him back into focus.
That's it.
And I think, yeah.
That's it. Finish what you're gonna say.
Oh, I was gonna say that John Morrison and the Miz can tag together, or I feel like John Morrison, by working outside of WWE for a number of years, has really honed his craft and playing off the Miz, someone who kind of got him into where he was before and succeeded with him in the role of the dirt sheet. And I don't remember exactly how far back I can go as far as them two goes, and they were feuding, I think, on his way out of Morrison's way out of WWE. I think we're in for some really good matches in the future with the crop of wrestlers that are there, and Miz needs to be the first guy that he works with, tag or feuds with.
I like it.
So SmackDown's the place for him.
Yeah, I like it. I didn't even think about that. I like that they would play on the history, their past history. Maybe even start with like a tag team situation and then have one of them turn on the other and set up like a WrestleMania match or something. That could be good.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, brother. Well, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate your insight, and we'll catch you later, all right?
Thank you, Sean.
All right. All right, so I have Kyle here. Kyle is our expert, our designated expert on NWA. He's going to talk a little bit about the recent pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view that they had, Into the Fire, and then he's going to give us his perspective and kind of some recapping of major events that are happening in the NWA. So go for it, bud.
Well, thank you, Sean. I'm happy to be here. I will be the resident old school expert, and as we were talking earlier, I'm really liking the old school feel of the NWA, and I knew I would when I saw Cornette on commentary and some of the more veteran guys coming in, like Trevor Murdoch, and some of the more I would say grown men like Nick Aldis and James Storm and others. But no, one thing I really liked about this Into the Fire pay-per-view is they really stepped up the production because the show is so bare bones. It's studio wrestling. NWA Power Weekly show is very bare bones. But this was cool. They got that cool sun graphic up Into the Fire. They've got actual ring entrances, music, right? And then we see Jim Cornette's replacement, Stu Bennett, on commentary, who I think is excellent, by the way. I really, really do. But more on him in a minute. But I really like the commentary between Stu Bennett and Joe Galli. Did not expect Bennett to play a heel character. I did not expect him to be a heel commentator because I typically don't like that sort of thing, believe it or not. And I actually was not a fan of the King doing the heel spot, which I know that blows people away. That's kind of heresy. I'm just saying, I prefer there to be a play-by-play guy and a color guy. That's what I prefer, right? And much like NXT, right? And I think they're doing it right. As far as the commentary team, but we got Joe Galli. He's good. I like him. A couple mess ups with the graphics there in the beginning. They were trying to show the card, and then they just had like the Into the Fire logo, superimposed over the card while they're trying to get those names out. So they're like, hurry up, get that out of there. But we get right to the action. And we started with a couple guys that I really, really, really like a lot. Eli Drake. I don't know if you know a lot about Eli Drake, but this guy can talk, he can go, he's from Maryland, right? There's points there. Right? And he's taking on Mr. Anderson. And this actually begins a weird... I was really frustrated with this match because Mr. Anderson was a babyface previous to this pay-per-view, right? And he kind of goes for that heel turn when he hits Eli Drake with the hook. But that instantaneously turns Eli Drake babyface, right? And that's not self-explanatory. So I thought it was a little strange going into this pay-per-view. They kind of flip-flop. But I think Mr. Anderson plays a good heel anyway, so I was satisfied with that. Yeah. And especially since Eli is so over too. So it's like it's only natural he should be a babyface. What do you think about the crowd turning people babyface?
I'm for it. I think it's. I think part of the problem with today is that people far too often want to cheer. The smart fan wants to cheer for the bad guy, and I think that if you can truly, I don't know. I feel like to fight it seems sometimes kind of counterproductive to what you're trying to accomplish. I think that it ends up just causing problems in the arena in general if fans are cheering the bad guys, and if there's an opportunity for it to happen naturally, I think that you should go for it. I think that it makes sense.
Well, it's funny building off of that because you're talking about it does cause problems when you play the stilted character. Roman Reigns comes to mind. Yeah. And he might, and at this point, it's beating a dead horse. I know that that's a cliche thing to say, but it's true, right? Like forcing him as the babyface, he should have turned heel. But speaking of that, you kind of have this heel women's faction in NWA. You've got Melina, you've got Thunder Rosa, and what is her name?
Marty Bell. I can't think of her name. Is it Marty Bell?
Yeah, Marty Bell. Marty Bell. And you kind of got this heel ladies faction, but they're getting over big time, especially with all these vignettes they're doing with Thunder Rosa, and she's this underdog. She's going pro MMA, which I love those vignettes for obvious reasons, being an MMA coach. So you want to cheer for Thunder Rosa. You want to cheer for Melina because they're getting her over as a star because she's a veteran, much needed veteran, by the way. Every one of these indies needs veterans. Yes. I think that's something that is a clear. I think we've seen a lot of the blind leading the blind in some of these indie shows. AEW comes to mind. Although AEW is not an indie show, but it's indie guys.
Yeah.
Indie guys on the main stage. So you can see the glaring, in my opinion, the glaring problems. But you've got veteran Molina. You've got Thunder Rosa, who was popular from previous promotions like Lucha Underground. And these girls are getting over big with the crowd. And people aren't caring what Allison Kay is doing. She's barely gotten any screen time. She's the female champion.
It's true.
Women's champion. So it's funny how, once again, the crowd seems to want to turn Molina's faction babyface. Mm-hmm. And they seem to not really care, or at least don't want to see much of Allison Kay. And they had the new girl on here, Tasha Steelz. Mm-hmm. She's, they try to get her over real quick, and I thought they had good. Tasha Steelz gave a good promo. Thunder Rosa gave a good promo. One thing I love about this promotion is the abundance of promos. Mm-hmm. It seems like they allow their guys to get over, and as a response, in a short amount of time, you get huge stars, like the question mark, right? Like, people go nuts for the question mark.
Yeah.
Because he's got a great gimmick. He's allowed to live that gimmick. People want to see it.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the question mark, he has a great match with Trevor Murdoch. Really great Hoss fight. I think the guy that steals the show is Aaron Stevens.
Yes.
Aaron Stevens is the best. Like, everybody says that MJF is the best heel in the business, and I agreed with that until I realized how amazing Aaron Stevens is. I think Aaron Stevens is the best heel right now. What do you think of that statement?
I don't know if I would say he's the best, but I definitely say he's top 5. He's definitely. I would definitely say he's the best in the NWA for sure. And I think to the point where he's really underrated. I think that they could. I think they know what they have, but I think they could go harder with it if they wanted, and maybe that's to come, in the future. But I would definitely put him top 5 for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm loving Aaron Stevens. More on him later. There was a tag match between the Rock and Roll Express and the Wild Cards. Weird thing about the Wild Cards. Is it the Wild Cards or is it the Wild Card singular? Because they seem to go back and forth with this. Joe Galley likes to say the Wild Card. Bennett likes to say Wild Cards. Yeah. And all of the graphics say Wild Cards plural. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Mm-hmm. Anyways, they have their match with Rock and Roll. I gotta tell you, man, I am not a fan of the Wild Cards.
Really?
And let me tell you why. They got excellent facials. Mm-hmm. I know Bram's been in the business for a long time. This Isaacs guy, I don't know who he is, if he's come from previous organizations. I don't know that much about him, to be honest. Seems green. They don't seem to have the synergy of the Rock and Roll. Obviously, the Rock and Roll is leading this thing. But Bram seems to have it on point. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the heck his name is in this promotion because he's got some convoluted name, but it's Bram. And I just don't think the Wild Card should be at the top of the card. I think they're good. They're good heels. They've got like I said, they've got the good facials. They're good at getting the crowd hyped up. But they just seem a little disjointed. I don't know if it's that partnership, if it's Royce Isaacs or whatever his name is. Mm-hmm. I just think they are not gelling. But I love this match anyway because of the psychology of the Rock and Roll. I thought they had a lot of old school plays and a lot of old school angles in this. And of course, they win with the roll up, which is kind of an NWA trope at this point, right? A lot of roll-ups as the finish. But as far as the rest of the show goes, you see Allison Kay. ODB is her surprise partner. Yay! The crowd pops for her. That was good. The sloppy match. I don't think that... I thought Molina is great. She's a star. Yeah. She's got a lot of good facials, a lot of star power. You can tell she's the veteran. I thought ODB, was looking for the right spots. But I'm telling you, these girls that they're putting on the top of the card here, Marty Bell, Allison Kay, they're just green. You can tell that they're not polished, and they're looking for spots. Now, is the NWA ring smaller than normal rings. I bet it is.
You think so?
I think that's what's causing a lot of people in these tag matches to be looking for the next spot. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's that delay where, like, you know, let's say I lift you up in like a sidewalk slam position. I'm waiting for the other guy to come off the rope. The timing is just off.
Yeah.
The timing is just off. You know how they say in wrestling school you're supposed to take that one step into everything?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're either jammed up and they're waiting for the people to reset, or they're not taking the extra step because they're afraid they're going to overcompensate. I don't know.
Could be. Plus, you got to remember that both those girls you mentioned are somewhat experienced Shimmer girls. So that indie element might be what's causing them to be a little bit off, maybe not used to the cameras, maybe not used to, you know, kind of the higher expectation. Whereas when you're talking about, you know, someone like Melina, who's obviously had tons of WWE experience, she's got a little bit more of that, you know, kind of more professional style of wrestling.
Well, then I want to know who's producing their matches.
Yeah.
Because someone needs to tell these girls, like, hey, you know, it needs to be a little crisper. I'm not trying to bust anybody's balls. I'm trying to look straight down the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think there's women in this company who are really great.
Yes.
But then I'm looking at who are they pushing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, maybe they come from another company, but to me, this Shimmer, that's indie stuff.
Yeah.
These girls, you know, they've got to clean it up. I just think they're a little bit green.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the match was pretty sloppy. A lot of good banter between Joe Galley and ODB at the end of the match. I thought that was hilarious. But then we come to the real boiling point here. Ricky Starks, who I love, great babyface,
yes,
versus Aaron Stevens versus Colt Boom
Cabana. That's right.
And I'm absolutely loving what they're doing with Colt and NWA. I think, you know, he's got a really good amount of TV time. He's great on the mic. Same thing, Ricky Starks looking great. And, of course, my man Aaron Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
They all get over. Interesting with Aaron Stevens, a question mark. Aaron Stevens getting booed, question mark. It's getting big pops. I think that's hilarious.
Yep.
I can't get enough of those guys on screen. And then, of course, Stevens gets over with the discus lariat, which I didn't even know was his finisher, because he's hiding behind the Christmas tree, which is a great spot.
Yep.
Total heel tactics, totally old school. Love that. Excellent double team series there. You know, between Colt and Ricky. I think there was a very technical match, singles match that they had while he was hiding behind the Christmas tree. So I'm really excited about. The guys wrestling, I think, is like very crisp.
Yeah.
I'm worried about some of the top girls. I think that goes for a lot of companies.
Yep.
And I've talked about this before about AEW. I think that there are women who are killing the game, and there's women who are killing my interest.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the stratification, you know, between the two poles of that is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the main event of the night, James Storm and Nick Aldis, 2 out of 3 falls match. This goes back to the babyface and heel thing I'm talking about. Nick Aldis is a heel. Right?
Before,
So
I mean, obviously
like,
you're going to talk about the recent episode, which, you know, definitely established that. But he's a
tweener.
Yeah, no, he's 100% tweener. Like, I think he was one of the
saying.
hardest ones to predict, because he's out there, like, you know, prior to this, like, promoting Tim Storm and kind of praising, like, hey, you know, this is the way it should be. But then at the same time, the whole Camilla thing is kind of like, okay, is he good? Is he bad? You know, yeah, he's definitely 100% tweener. It was really hard to determine what side he was on.
That's what I mean. So he comes out, he's got this hero's welcome, you know, and he plays to the crowd, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, back in the day, we talked about this earlier, you know, in the age of kayfabe, if you're a heel, you don't play to the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do heelish things to the crowd, but you don't say, yay, I'm the champ, right? That's the babyface before. So it's just funny that, you know, Aldis, he plays to the crowd, he gets everybody hyped up, he's talking to us for Retro Mania Wrestling, right? It's me, the national treasure, Nick Aldis. He's talking to you. So I think it's funny. He's but still stiff on the mic. So I didn't know what they're trying to go with that. trying to guess, like they're trying to go heel, but yeah, he's super tweener. And then James Storm is also a tweener.
Yep.
So I don't know who to root for in this match.
Yep.
Because it's not like.
And I don't know. I just to interrupt you there, but I don't know if I would necessarily say that James Storm is a tweener. I think there is a rugged element to him and kind of like a I don't follow the rules element, which gives him kind of that heel rub. But I think that of the two, I would say from my perspective as a fan, he was the one who was the more obvious face in that feud than the heel. I feel like Nick Aldis, in that feud, I don't think it was clear either of them were heels. But I would say the one that was less likely to be the heel was James Storm, from my perspective.
Well, I would say I agree with you, but neither wrestled like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's another thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, no one was at all even like a glimmer of close to being a heel.
Right. And so that convoluted things a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, Camille does distract James Storm, mm-hmm. which allows him to get the first fall. James Storm coaching Tim Storm on the rules thought was a great spot because Tim Storm says before the match, I don't know how to do this. So he's like, what are you going to do? Count us both out? What are you going to do then? So that's a great spot. Love that. Love that in the studio you can hear the guys. The Christmas tree spot, because they wanted him to use the Christmas tree in the fight, so he hits him with or throws him through the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Nice double axe handle from the top rope. He catches him in the belly to belly. Storm comes down for the double axe handle, and Aldis catches him and belly to belly him. Awesome strength there. Love the match. It was 30 minutes, but it didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing. The pit of my stomach's like, 2 out of 3 falls. You know it's going to go on for way too long.
Yeah.
But everything was good. The ref bump, the turnbuckle debacle. I was really on the edge of my seat of who was going to win this. Yeah. And then, of course, the biggest news, I guess, in NWA right now, OMG, Marty Scurll, the villain, with his badass ring music.
Yes. How about
the
Did you notice the lack of awareness of that music? Like, as soon as that music hit me watching it, like, I was, like, freaking out. I was like, holy shit, like, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm doing the whoop-whoops right along as it's going on. And it was, like, everyone in the audience was kind of like, huh? Like, who?
Yeah.
Who? And it was like, dude, like, it's his music. That kind of threw me for a loop. Because once he came out, people were like, oh, man, it's Marty Scurll. But I'm like, I was really surprised at the lack of recognition from the song. You know?
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird, too. There was, like, this big lull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this big lull in the crowd. So, I agree. That was a little strange. But as soon as he came out, everybody went nuts. Yeah. So, that was good. He comes down. He's got a little face-off with Nick Aldis. And then something weird happened. I thought that was the end of the show. So, I'm starting to look away, get my stuff together, you know, whatever. And then it goes to him having the interview.
Yep.
So I was a little bit weirded out by that because it kind of went black for a while.
Yep.
Not super sure what went on there, but basically Marty Scurll comes in. He gives a pretty good promo about, you know, how he should be at the top, blah, blah, blah. Kind of similar promo as anybody else coming into, you know, a promotion. I'm looking for the gold, whatever, you know, the 10 pounds of gold, etc. He gives a pretty good promo, but I prefer the interview they do of him later.
Yeah.
Because he really has this down-to-earth, like, despite him being the villain and his villain time or whatever, villain hours or whatever, I think that he has a really down-to-earth personality that makes him really good for, like, it's almost like a shoot interview, every interview he does, because he just is so comfortable he's not putting on airs, which is a little refreshing in a company where everybody's playing over the top for that old school gimmick. You know, this week on NWA Power, we see Aaron Stevens, the question mark, come back. They give an excellent promo as usual. Aaron Stevens is showing off his new national championship belt and it's got 3 degrees, like his black belt on it, which I thought was hilarious. Did you watch
Power
this week?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Oh, that's
the
awesome.
Third degree championship. Yeah, that was classic.
I just popped on that. I thought that was hilarious. I marked again in my notes. I took this down about some of the weird face and heel turns, like Melina and Thunder Rosa, or Ashley Vox. Ashley Vox is doing run-ins on people and trying to jump people. Yeah. Is she a baby face or is she a heel? Mr. Anderson and Eli Drake have confirmed flipped.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who are the same alignment, the Wild Cards and the Dawsons had a pretty good match, I thought. Which was two heels. And they worked the hand. They broke Zane Dawson's hand, broke his hand. That was a really good match, I thought. Eli Drake and Anderson have their no DQ match, so they got that blow off. Eli Drake using the chair, much like Anderson used on him. And I think the biggest news is the TV title tournament. Right? So they've got a bracket tournament, which I love, bracket-style tournaments. Take some of the guesswork out of why people are fighting each other and so on and so forth. And Question Mark and Colt Cabana are going to have their blow-off during that tournament too. So I'm really excited to see where all this stuff is going. NWA is the only thing that I'm watching right now because I felt like I was watching MLW as well. Yeah. And, I just don't have the willpower to come back to MLW. There's just nothing that's keeping me there. Yeah. There was when they had, the Hart Foundation, but now they don't have Teddy Hart. Yep. So I just don't care about what's going on in a lot of these other promotions. I keep a close eye on the dirt sheets and stuff like that, but, NWA has got me coming back and back and back for more. I just love the characters, love the presentation, and I'm just over the moon for this. And I'm glad Stu Bennett's on there now. And I'm just really excited about where this is headed. What are your thoughts on this week's Power and this week's pay-per-view?
Well, I really liked it. I thought they did a nice job with the pay-per-view. I thought it was definitely kind of like you said, they upped the level as far as their the professional side to it, making it a little bit more, and this was great. I loved the images, like the posters that they had along the way, and then people were interacting with them a little bit of each of the the stars. I definitely enjoyed the pay-per-view. I thought that as far as NWA this week, I did like the big reveal with the 4, with Camille and Nick Aldis, and then the wild card, or wild cards as the case may be, them kind of a faction, and that kind of, I think, that, like I said, that kind of cemented, I think, Aldis's heel turn. But I wanted to get back to as we kind of wrap up, because I think this is one of those things that it kind of plays into the thing I was going to ask you, which is like kind of the growing edge where they can improve, and I think it has something to do with your idea about like the tweener, and like it seems like there's a lot of tweeners in NWA, and kind of what's your perspective on that?
Well, yeah, and I find that shocking, considering it should be clear, right? Because NWA is based upon the 80s style of wrestling. And I find it strange to have a number of tweeners. I mean, look at Trevor Murdoch. Yeah. I mean, I guess he's a babyface. Yeah. I don't know. So it's the guesswork is strange. I think this is what I think. I think they either need kayfabe or they don't. Yeah. So there's certain things that they say in interviews and in commercials, their little commercials they make, that break kayfabe blatantly. Yeah. And I feel like we need a safe space away from breaking kayfabe openly on air, like Kenny Omega would do. He would break kayfabe right in front of our faces. I don't need Colt Cabana or anybody else breaking kayfabe to my face. Just maintain your kayfabe. I don't care if they play Austin Idol and whoever else in between the thing making funny jokes that break kayfabe. But, I think they need to establish their heels and their baby faces more clearly. Yeah. That's my one bitch, I guess. Yeah.
I would, and I actually want to bring this in because I do, and you remember this from our time that we used to hang out and talk, is I'm a heavy podcast listener.
Sure.
And so one of the ones I've been getting into a lot the past, I don't know, maybe like 6 months or so is Busted Open from the Sirius. It's a Sirius XM show, but they actually do like podcast versions of it, like condensed versions. And one of the things they actually had Billy Corgan on there. It's actually just when you were talking about it, it kind of made me think about this. Was Billy Corgan's big philosophy is he said that he doesn't believe that there are good guys and bad guys. He thinks that there are people who are human and who are put in positions where they either make good guy decisions or bad guy decisions. And that's where he likes to live with his characters, is that no one's a clear-cut good guy or a bad guy. It's more about taking real people, real characters, or real enough characters, believable enough characters, and putting them in scenarios where they have to make decisions on whether they're going to make good decisions or bad decisions. And so I think that's really what you're seeing, because like I said, it just kind of clicked to me. Whether I agree or disagree with that, or whether you disagree or agree with that, I think that might be what we're seeing. But I think you're right. I think it adds a lot of trouble with determining whether or not they're good guys or bad guys, which I think you need. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think whatever Billy Corgan's smoking, I want some. Because clearly, if you're the baby face and I'm the heel, you're baby facing and I'm healing.
Yeah.
That's just the way it fucking is. Now, on the other hand, I kind of like this idea. It's like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
For the guy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's like, okay, but then the lack of clarity, I think, is too detrimental. Like, look at Nick Aldis. Like, if I look at Nick Aldis, I want to like him. He looks like a baby face.
Mm-hmm.
He plays to the crowd like a baby
charismatic,
face.
Yeah.
So if not overtly shown to be a heel, I'm going to assume he's a babyface.
Yeah.
Because it's like everybody tears some ass on a promo.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a heel.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody fights with a closed fist. Don't make you a babyface or a heel. Right? But but you're right. An organized pattern of behaviors dictates what your character, if we like to call that. First of all, that's a neologism.
Yeah.
First of all, character that was never used in professional wrestling before the modern era.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't even really like that term, but because it's commonly understood between marks like us,
old school.
I get it.
Yeah.
But they're not characters of baby faces and heels, and I get what Billy Corgan's going for.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we were mistaking for the crowd turning people. So, let's say, for example, Eli Drake is a perfect example of this. Mm-hmm. Because the crowd clearly wanted Eli Drake to be a babyface, and I think that Eli Drake wants to be a babyface.
Yeah.
And so it made it clear in the case of Eli Drake, but it makes it highly unclear in the case of Nick Aldis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Nick Aldis needs to determine, a la William Patrick Corgan, am I going to make the bad guy decision or the good guy decision? He's doing both.
Yeah.
He needs to pick.
Yeah.
And, well, now he has, right? He's heel turn. He's officially heel turn. Camille, by the way, is, she's with Bram. I don't know. I think they're married, right?
I don't know. I'm
pretty sure Bram and Camille are
because I always thought she was with Braun Strowman. That's what I thought I'd read, that she was with Braun Strowman.
No. I think that Camille used to be with Braun Strowman,
but she's no longer with him.
And now she's with Bram.
I mean, it's quite possible. I know the only thing I know is that I think they were together at one point. But
I think they were too. But yes, they were. But Bram and she, I believe, are married or they go together. One of the two. They're either dating or they're married.
I guess that makes that makeout spot a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, well, that's why I think they did that too. Was because she was kayfabe with Aldis or whatever, and then now she's with him. So I guess that's just the way it is. But to get back to your question about Billy Corgan, and I think there should be clear babyface and heels.
Yeah.
If it's not working, I don't hate prospect of the crowd turning them.
Yeah.
It's just maybe it should just be more clear. That's my perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree. As we wrap up, kind of the thing I keep asking all of our correspondents is, why should people be watching NWA?
People should be watching NWA because they got all the stars. Allison Kay, the National Treasure, Nick Aldis, James Storm, Ricky Starks. We got live studio wrestling back in Atlanta. It's real to me, damn it. That's why we need to be watching NWA.
I will.
You'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge of it.
I will say, of all the shows that I watch, I do watch, probably, especially to my the detriment of my relationship with my girlfriend, I watch way too much wrestling. And I definitely will say that one of the ones that I consistently want to be there for and that I consistently enjoy, I honestly say I don't think I've seen a single episode since they debuted that I haven't enjoyed, has been NWA. I love it. I think they know exactly what they are. They don't try to be anything more than what they are. I think they're smart by working with a small roster. I think that they keep it simple. I think they don't try to convolute things. I do 100% agree with you that they do need to make it more clear who they're. I mean, because Tim Storm is like a clear babyface through and through, and I think they need to be a little more clear with other people as well. But I do think that it's definitely my favorite hour of TV every week, without question. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I'm so happy to be on here, being the NWA correspondent, because it's like picking the best president, Secret Santa.
I like it. Cool. All right. Well, we appreciate you, Kyle, and definitely hit you up again. We'll get you on here next month's podcast. And thanks again for your time.
Well, anytime you want to talk old school wrestling, I'm always available, my man.
Awesome. All right. Take care, buddy.
All right. Can I plug one last thing?
Sure. Plug what you need to.
All right. Yeah. Just for anybody that may be listening, or any of the other correspondents, make sure you tune in every Monday to Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru. He'll answer questions for me and you. And always check on Friday as well for the Jim Cornette Experience with co-host Brian Last. That's all I got to say. Over and out.
Awesome. All right, so we have Joshua here. Joshua is our designated New Japan expert. He's going to be talking a little bit about the upcoming pay-per-view, Wrestle Kingdom. So why don't you give us the rundown, Joshua, and tell us kind of what we're looking at for this upcoming show.
All right, well, no problem with that. First off, it's a first time ever 2-night special, which is, I believe, phenomenal. Me and my buddies have had this discussion before that I think WrestleMania needs to start getting this kind of idea of going 2 different nights, because so much talent, so many matches. Why throw it on one card where nobody can get times when you can split it up on 2? But obviously the big headline of it all is going to be the title tournament and unification of Okada and Ibushi, and then White versus Naito. That's night 1. And then the winners will face off on night 2. I believe, and don't hold me to this completely, I believe it will be one of the first time ever that both titles will actually be unifying together. And it's been kind of Naito's goal to have this happen. So he's kind of my pick to win. And I really kind of want anyone but Jay White, but hey, what can you say? Which means it'll be Jay White if it's anything to do with my kind of life and my teams. Another huge match is Ospreay, who arguably is the best wrestler in the world. If you have not had a chance to see him, or if you have, this is definitely one you're going to want to watch back with, I'm going to mess this up, it's Hiromu Takahashi, who's coming back from a very serious neck injury. Some people thought he would never be able to wrestle again, and a few months back he kind of challenged Ospreay and teased him a little bit by laying on his back and doing his little neck pose, showing him, hey, I'm full strength. Let's get this to go, which I think that may be the match of the night. And then there's a big situation combining the two, where we get to see 2 of arguably the biggest names in AEW despite not having an AEW New Japan relationship, where Jericho is coming over to take on Tanahashi, which is like an icon versus icon, rock and roll versus rock and roll mindset, which is going to be phenomenal, and I can't wait to see it. And then obviously the match that I have no idea how Moxley's going to survive or how Archer's going to survive. If we thought Omega and Moxley was insane, this may be just as crazy. When Archer takes on Moxley for the U.S. title, and then the winner of that will fight Juice Robinson for the U.S. title in night 2.
That's
so
cool.
It also stems back to either Juice losing the title to Archer when Moxley couldn't come over to Japan, or it also results in Moxley and Parker, or not Parker, wow, not CJ Parker, I owe Juice an apology. Moxley and Juice going one-on-one and breaking their one-on-one tag. Pretty nice tag matches. God will take on Finlay and Juice in night 1. If you have not seen Guerrilla Destiny, they're phenomenal. They're the Tonga brothers. Very, very good. I was kind of hoping that they would make the jump and come back over to America and help out the AEW. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. They just locked up a deal with New Japan, so they'll be staying there. And then you get your basic 4-on-4 type matches with LIJ, Suzuki Gun, Chaos, Bullet Club. Going to be chaos. Going to be a fun time. And the most important thing, though, of all these nights are 2 events. And one is the opener to the actual shows, are Liger's retirement matches. 30-plus years, in-ring, great history. I mean, if you've never seen Liger versus Brian Pillman, personally as a Cincinnati guy, BP will always be one of the best. You need to see that match.
Yeah.
And then also Liger's teaming with one of his biggest rivals of all time on night 2 in his actual last match to go against Hiromu and Dragon Lee. Should be a really, really good match. But that kind of just sums up. It's a fully loaded card, both nights, top to bottom. Very interested to see how they're going to book things, especially with these AEW guys, because Tanahashi already said he's going to break the 4th wall, quote unquote, and if he wins, he tells AEW he deserves a title shot.
Yeah, which I think is great. So my first question is, because I know they run, like, obviously if you want to watch them in America, you have to watch them like super early in the morning.
Actually, I don't know if you saw the breaking news today. They will no longer be having a television deal in America. Access TV has officially dropped them. After Access dropped Impact, they didn't want to have 2 wrestling companies, so they dropped New Japan. New Japan has no American television. It'd be a shame if, there was another company that kind of want to work with them.
Yeah, right.
That kind of has former New Japan guys that kind of needs a little more talent.
Yeah.
And has a TV deal.
Yeah.
A bigger one. Just saying.
That's crazy.
So
but I mean, like, because I want to watch. I would like to try and watch it on the New Japan app.
Yes.
Yeah. What time? So what time are they running? Like what days and what time?
See, this is where I always get it messed up. So it should be, I believe it's 2 a.m. our time. Both it would be the 4th and 5th.
Oh.
It's kind of really weird. It's really early in the morning, but it may also be 4 a.m. That I'd have to try to figure out with the whole Eastern time zone and stuff out like that. But I think it's always messed up, kind of.
Yeah, I might. You know what? I might actually be crazy enough and actually wake up early and watch it live.
Yeah, no, that's always the debate. Watch it live, watch it off, watch it live. Unfortunately, I work all next weekend, so I'm not going to be able to watch it until Monday.
Oh, man.
Me and 2 of my buddies are going to sit down and double up and watch both nights in the same day.
That'll be cool. Do you usually watch all of it? Because I always tend to skip the 6-man pylons.
Yeah, no, I tried, specifically the G1. I kind of like watching the tag matches, which a lot of them help build the storylines for the G1, which made it really good. And if you've never seen a G1, you need to watch the G1. By the way, fantastic wrestling all around. No, I usually can't watch all the shows. Wrestle Kingdom, though, might be a little bit different because, I mean, every single match on here, outside maybe the whole 8-man tags of LIJ, Suzuki Gun, and Chaos Bullet Club. Maybe I'll skip over that and go back and watch it because, I mean, they're nothing like Go Home. But these title matches, there's no way I'm skipping any of them.
Yeah. What is the highlight? So, like, what do you think is going to be the highlight of the two events? What do you think is the matches that are going to be the highlights?
Night one, I think it's kind of pretty simple. Just Ospreay and Arumo. I always mess up that name, but just seeing him back in the ring, like I don't know if you ever got to watch the match.
Yeah.
When he landed it on his neck, I thought he was done.
Yeah.
Like, and now that it's kind of like one of those things also where it's going back and like, kind of like watching Dan O'Brien get another shot. It's a man who never thought he'd do this again, and now he's going to be able to. And he's also getting it to go against one of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the best wrestler in the world, Will Ospreay. So I think that's going to steal.
I definitely think. I know part of the reason that I watch New Japan is specifically for Ospreay. He's. I don't think I've ever seen a match he's done where I haven't been at least like floored at some point.
Yeah. The only time I've ever seen a bad matchup with him, at least lately, is Bad Luck Fale. And
but that's because it's bad luck. Yeah.
But that's just Bad Luck Fale.
I'll tell you what. I watched the. This was the first year that I actually picked a couple of stars to follow in the G1, and watched all their matches, which is an undertaking unto itself. I really recommend that if you try to get into G1, pick one person and just stick with the one person. But Ospreay was one of them, and that opening match that he had with Lance Archer,
phenomenal.
Amazing. Made me.
That sold me on Archer.
Yep, that's exactly it. Actually,
he went from me saying tramp stamp to holy hell, this guy can go.
Yeah. It was funny because I actually, the New Japan show that was in the Philly arena that I went to when they had the show there, he was actually out like in the main area doing autographs and stuff, and I actually talked to him about that. I said that was the match that for me, I think I might have lost you there. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. That was the last, I said that was the match that really made me aware of his abilities. And he said, yeah, a lot of people were made aware because of that. So, it speaks volumes.
And then also, I mean, like I said, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they book Archer and Moxley. Because, I mean, the way it looks with AEW, Moxley's the next #1 contender. Depending if he doesn't join, that inner circle this week or next. I guess it's next week technically, but just how, if AEW had to say, if you're AEW, you don't want Jericho losing to Tanahashi.
Yep.
But if you're New Japan, you don't want Tanahashi losing to Jericho.
Yeah.
And if Tanahashi beats Jericho, maybe somehow we get some kind of reunion. And I guess that's also the two things I'm most looking forward to, just being an American and being so into AEW that these New Japan matches with those two guys have a big implication.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah, that's a good point. So if there was, what would you do differently if there's anything that you would say it's kind of a growing edge for New Japan? What is the area that you think they can improve on, and what would you suggest and how to kind of make it even better than it is?
Well, kind of went back to it. One, especially now that you just lost your American television, you need to come to agreement with another American TV, whether it's getting back with ROH or they've kind of broken away from. I mean, they're running 2 shows, I believe, in California, and ROH is not affiliated with it at all.
That's crazy.
Or it's coming to an agreement finally with AEW and saying, look, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to trade young guys, young talents back and forth. I also wish it would with this show specifically, I wish they would have gave Liger a one-on-one match to end his career. I get to tag, and then also, like I said, it's the aspect that this is one of his biggest rivals that he's teaming with. But it's still one of those things when you watch a guy retire, you want to see him go out on his back on his own and then give a respect kind of thing. But it'll be interesting with that. I also kind of wish it would do away with a little more Jay White. I'm not the biggest fan of him.
I love Jay White.
But it's not everybody's cup of tea. And more with Suzuki Gun. I absolutely love Suzuki, and also more with, speaking of how we brought up G1 earlier, Shingo needs to be on more, because I don't know if you saw Shingo's match versus, well, really any of the big guys, but
he's good.
Shingo's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's good.
Phenomenal.
And it's like he's deceptive because he's little, but he actually can really, like, he can go with the big guys, and he can bring, like, an energy and a strength that is kind of uncommon to someone his size. Yeah, he's believable.
Yeah, I've been following that guy since he was in Dragon Gate. When Dragon Gate USA was a thing, I got all into that. I traveled over to Midwest, went to Detroit, went to Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And went up to, I believe it was Cleveland, or maybe it was just Chicago again, to watch Dragon Gate USA.
Wow.
I was hooked on that indie scene, and, like, Shingo was always one of those guys who just amazed me with his strength. Like, he's just got that Roderick Strong type feel to me, that he can be the guy. It's just, right now, obviously, he's teaming with the rest of LIJ, where he fits in very well. But I'd love to see him break out and maybe get a shot somewhere else with something.
My biggest area that I would love to see them do differently, which is a small thing, but would, I think, for at least for the U.S. viewers, would be huge, is I cannot tell you how frustrating it is that they don't have translated versions of the video packages. Even just putting subtitles up, because I want to get. Because one of the things I love about New Japan is their history and how they go back, and they use the history of years and years, and that makes you invest a lot more. But, like, if you can't, like, obviously as an American viewer, if you can't understand those packages, I mean, I'm so glad they finally got a translator on the English commentary now, so that he can translate what's being said in the ring. But, like, I think that's the biggest thing, and it's a simple thing, but I would just love to be able to understand those video packages.
That actually is a great point. It kind of slipped my mind until you brought it up, because that actually used to be my thing about New Japan. I just always told my buddies, I'm like, well, I gotta believe what they're saying. I got to follow along a little bit better. I don't want to just watch two guys wrestle. I need a story that's believable. Every once in a while, you can have a guy wrestle a guy for whatever reason. There doesn't have to be a reason, just a match. But for these storylines and these promos, like, I need to believe something. Like, that's what makes some of these guys, such as, well, two of them, Jericho and Moxley, so great. Is their promos are fantastic, and they make you bite on every word. And even when they're going over Japan, they're still getting responses. That it's not the same as what we get here, and don't have the time to learn Japanese. So the subtitles would definitely help.
Yeah. So tell me why someone should either tune into New Japan or tune into Wrestle Kingdom.
Wrestle Kingdom alone is usually the greatest show of the year. Like, every year, there is multi-5-star matches. There's things that you have never seen before. There's an old school type mindset where you get those tag matches where it's not as crazy as flippy as some people like to say, or high spots, but it's good back and forth matchups. And I don't remember the last time I did not watch a Wrestle Kingdom and not be happy and not be like, okay, I need to watch more New Japan. And as someone who has joined this whole AEW movement, it's 110% opposite of anything that you will see on Monday or Friday nights. And for me, that's what I've been looking for. So if you're part of one of those people who maybe fell out of love with wrestling and want to try to get back into it, or someone who just wants to give something new an option, more of an NXT type style, New Japan will be there for you. It's a buffet. It literally has everything for you. This show will have everything for you.
Plus, I feel like it's got a simplicity to it as far as storytelling goes. That is, I think it's, of all the pro wrestling brands out there, I think it's the one that's closest to, like, straight sports. You know?
It's that's kind of what it is, though. I've always heard, like, this rumor, like, in Mexico it's a religion, in Japan it's a sport, and Canada's tradition, and in America it's become a joke. And when you look back and think about it, that's kind of what it is. It's something totally different. I I wanted to go so bad. Working for American Airlines, I was so tempted to attempt to go. And one of these years, I will go. It's a bucket list type thing.
Yep, it's on my bucket list too.
And just, it's a buffet. It's going to have something for everybody.
Yeah.
And until you give it a shot, until you watch it, you can't really bash it. But I totally also understand if somebody will not enjoy it because it's not for everyone.
Yeah. I will say, though, if there's anything that you're going to enjoy, it's definitely going to be Wrestle Kingdom, and I agree with you in the sense that I feel like I would have a hard time arguing that it's not the best pay-per-view every year.
I don't remember last time it wasn't really.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little biased again, and I keep bringing them up, but I mean, AEW delivered pretty well this year with their pay-per-views, but even going back, you look at Wrestle Kingdom last year, it was phenomenal, and you look at this card, you could argue out of the top 10 quote-unquote wrestlers in the world, they've got 5 or 6 of them on this card, including 2 of the best here from America.
Yeah, I agree. Well, cool. Well, Joshua, I appreciate you being on, and we'll definitely hit you up again next time we have a New Japan show coming up, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, I do got one thing to add, though.
Do it.
For the whole aspect of changing things. Stardom will have their first match ever, and it will be a women's match opening.
I didn't know that.
Wrestle Kingdom as a dark match, quote unquote, but it's the first time that they're finally letting the women come over to a New Japan show.
That's huge.
And give it a shot, which is huge for Wrestle Kingdom and huge for women wrestling over there. So even if you just want to be part of history, watch history happen.
Are they going to air it?
It's going to be clips, but you can watch it on the, it's like the dark show.
Oh, on the app?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's cool. Cool. All right, brother. Well, thanks for being on.
Always, anytime, man.
All right, peace. All right, so this is going to be our major segment of the podcast for December. Right now, I have Joshua back with us. I have my friend Jay here, as well as I'm hoping my buddy Chris is going to join as well. But basically, the topic that we're talking about here is kind of the state of wrestling right now. It was a great article that Jay shared with me that basically talked about the lack of storytelling today and how, kind of using the example of the Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan match at WrestleMania 3 as kind of like the pinnacle of best all-time wrestling match. And basically arguing that today there's just a severe lack of storytelling, and despite there being lots of options out there, there's a struggling viewership and things of that matter. So, Jay, I know you had some agreements with this, so why don't you weigh in on kind of your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. There's so much of it. It's easy to get, and with everything streaming and YouTube and just a plethora of different federations all over. But at the same time, for someone who like myself, have liked wrestling for 30-some years, I can't watch what's going on today and feel the need to tune in every week. And this is just, we'll start with WWE. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing over and over, and you can't do anything new because we've seen it all. We've seen it every week, and the next week it's something completely, the same guys doing the same moves and, stories that don't matter. Now that the AEW is around, I think it's great for the wrestlers to have some place to work, make money. I just don't get, the way that they... And not just them, but I think it's the indies these guys all came from the indies, and they've never learned to actually wrestle a match. They go out and they jump around and do cool things. They don't listen to the crowd. And it's the second match of the card shouldn't be doing the same moves that the main event does. You shouldn't kick out of every move that you throw, because what's left for later in the show? There's got to be, some guys have to lose. Not every match needs to be 10, 15, 20 minutes with 1,000. Go out there, have a couple squash matches, have, a guy that's always losing, but he has a decent match for 3 or 4 minutes, and you get a couple moves in, and then go move on, and then move on. The card's supposed to get gradually to better things, more exciting, whatever. Then you see some exciting, moves that the opening bell, opening curtain jerker shouldn't have done, and he shouldn't be allowed to do because someone's in the back now teaching these guys how to do the right things.
What would you say is like, so if you were to epitomize like best, one of the best matches or one of the best workers, kind of where would you, like, it doesn't have to be like your number one, but just some things that come to mind to give some people some context.
I mean, it's tough now. There's tons of guys out there now that are great. Daniel Bryan and, as far as the new, most of the new guys are great. Cesaro or Kevin Steen or
Seth frickin' Rollins?
yeah, Rollins is great, but I think it's just I've seen too much of him now. Randy Orton, guys like that are great. They're better than what I grew up with, but it's like you don't care about them because for whatever reason you never got that. They didn't connect, or they did connect, but it's too much of it, and it's like, okay, I see it. It's like any good thing, you can't have it every day. It's too much.
So who do you think, who's someone that you would say was maybe in the time that you watched, or best overall at what they did and storytelling and all that?
Listen, you got, Ric Flair could have a great match and make anybody look good, and you would think, when you were younger, and you were naive to think that, you thought this guy had a chance to win. He made that guy look great. Now maybe it made him not look like the best champion, but he built guys up so that they were going to make money going down the road. Listen, Dusty Rhodes, he might not have been the greatest looking guy, but the guy could wrestle. The Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. Anybody was in the Horsemen except for, Mongo McMichael and whoever was in the latest ones. You know what I mean? There's so many great guys out there.
Yeah.
Chris Benoit, we mentioned him earlier, a guy like that. But those moves, the things that these people do, look what that does to you.
Fair.
But the guys of today are unbelievable. But it's just like, slow down. Give me a little less. I don't need that much.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, what are your thoughts? You want to weigh in here?
Yes. You hear me?
Yeah.
Make sure my mute turned off. Okay, cool. So I see the point where you're saying where you're supposed to progress and listen to the crowd, and the main event should be the top match and so forth. But also, it's kind of like a movie, I guess you say. You want to have your ups and downs and roller coaster, especially when it comes to live television. But so he mentions Ric Flair, and then I can turn around and at least this generation's version of Ric Flair, in my opinion, is Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is now doing everything that Ric Flair previously has done, and he's changed his character thousands and thousands and thousands of times. He is listening to the fans. He's getting over and so forth. But it also kind of goes back, he was also an old school guy who kind of learned, but he seems to be taking a lot of these younger guys underneath his wing and doing so. And then he mentions Dusty version nowadays, I feel like Cody. Cody is amazingly over with the crowd. So yeah, I'll give you the AEW seems to be changing the mindset of everything and doing so forth. But I also see where they're coming from, where WWE and their storylines have we don't have that Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant type moment as that one mentioned. And nowadays, because we just have nothing to care and believe in, because Vince doesn't care or believe in anything. His mind changes like that, and somebody else who was getting over with the crowd is no longer on television. Case in point, Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder, The Revival. These guys are just getting pushed down the cards because, Vince doesn't like them, or Vince says, I didn't get a crowd reaction in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to care about a guy in 3 weeks when he's getting taken off the screen like that? But to say, and maybe it's just, everything's a little bit different. Don't get me wrong, I grew up during the Attitude Era, so I love the Attitude Era style. But I also also am one of those people who openly, like he mentioned, I don't want to see somebody every single night taking a chair shot to the head.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who has had many concussions in my life, I don't wish that on anyone. And the time off and so forth. But also, there was a lot of really, really bad stuff during the old time that we were just entertained by, the storylines. And maybe that's what we need just now, better days. It's more storylines that make us care, with also all this talent that we have in the ring.
I would say too. I think because I've been telling Jay, I've been watching some of the I've been watching 1989 WWF as of late, as well as actually some 1989 WCW, which is like the WCW is like digging through trash. Like there's these gems that are like buried in these like horrendous matches, and then you get to like I just watched the Steamboat Flair match where Steamboat finally won the title. Like that was amazing, and they go to your point, Jay. Like obviously that was a Ric Flair match that was like 40 minutes long, something like that, half an hour, 40 minutes, and it told a story, and it was compelling, and it was engaging. But I do think that there is an element of you didn't have. I don't know. Like I feel like part of the thing of with times changing is that the audience changes, and I think that there's an idea that attention spans are shorter. Sure. I know it's harder for me to sit and watch a like a match like that, or like I was watching WrestleMania 5 for the first time, and like I don't get me wrong, like I love it, but it is hard for me to stay focused for that long.
Right, and when you see what the today's things, it's tough to go back and see and sit through all that slower paced, but yet the crowd is into an arm drag. Yes. And now the guy gets he does a 6-time around flip off the top rope, and people are sitting on their hands. It's like, my worry is, where do we go next?
Yeah,
that I can see. I mean, we were there for this. The latest one that's been getting criticized a lot is Omega and Moxley.
Oh yeah,
and how nasty it got. I'm not sure if you watched it or not, Jim.
I saw like some of the clips or whatever. I didn't watch it all.
Yeah, there was a lot of heat on that, and somebody responded, next time you do a hardcore match, how do you top that?
Yeah.
Right. Someone is going to eventually hurt themselves if they try to top something that similar.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see your point, definitely, when it comes to that. Is okay, so people are kicking out of a 630 now. Like it's nothing, but DDTs, I mean, how long did it take for somebody, like Jake the Snake injured someone seriously with the basic DDT on the concrete on the outside. Well, now we see that in every hardcore match.
Right, but you bring that up, and now last week I was surprised I think it was on Raw, or WWE, they did an angle where they moved the pad out of the way and dropped the guy, with DDT or some sort of version of it.
Almost dropped,
right.
I can't remember the dude's name, but Cambarero.
Yeah, and they actually stretched him out, and it was like, I was like, what am I looking at? What year is this? They're actually going to try to pretend that would really hurt you, And I was surprised. I'm like, good, maybe they're trying to slowly tighten it up a little bit. Guys, slow down. Yeah. This would really hurt you. Like, we can't give away everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think it's funny. So, like, I know one of these that was mentioned in the article, and I think you agree with this, is like everyone does a super kick now. Like everyone does super kicks. Everyone does like a moonsault or a 450 or whatever. Like everyone's doing kind of the same moves. But what was funny was, although I agree that's overly done today, I did tell you this when I was watching some of the shows, that the old ones, it seemed like everyone hit a pile driver in the 80s. Like, and I think they did have go-to moves. Now, granted, I mean, like nowadays, like, when back then when Jake the Snake Roberts did the DDT, like no one fucking touched that. But nowadays, everyone hits a DDT, or, shake, rattle, and roll, swing a neck breaker. Like, now everyone hits swing neck breakers. So it does become kind of this game of, like, trying to top, that eventually it's like, well, what the hell do you do? And how do you get to that next level,
It's kind of like my mindset when we mention moves that everybody does. I'll never get the name of it right, but when they dive through the roofs, like ropes, a suicide dive kind of thing, a tope something.
Tope suicida.
Everyone, and I mean everyone in AEW is doing it now.
Right.
And it's like, okay, after I see it, it's just like, okay, can we not do that move again?
Right.
And I don't know a lot about it, and I've watching the movie The Wrestler or whatever, there used to be conversations like, hey, we're going to work the leg this match. Don't work the leg.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're going to work the arm this match. We're going to work the arm. Hey, we're going to do some dives to the outside. Don't do dives to the outside. And now it just seems like it's free for all. Everybody can do this.
And I think it's more in it's that indie mindset where there's not someone in control. You know, somebody's got to take. You know, and like that thing with Jericho, you said it was with the tag team stuff. But I mean, if that's a real story, I don't believe anything I read. But it's like, hey, guys, so I got to do this the right way, or it's going to start looking. Now with these cool moves, though, back to the other argument, I love a cool move, awesome, but that's got to be the finisher because you can't get up from it.
Yes.
If a guy wants to be able to do a 6-round splash with a twist and an arm, great, but it's got to be the end, and then
My issue on that, too, is it goes back because I was just talking to Josh earlier about New Japan and how, I love New Japan now. I've been following it for a couple of years now, and it's definitely an acquired taste, and it's not for everyone. But the one thing that drives me nuts that I feel like it's found its way into AEW is that there became a period in time in New Japan, and currently it's still going on, where people have to kick out of every finisher. And I was thinking the only move that I know of that is in New Japan that is actually protected, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Josh, but is Jay White's finisher. I forget what it's called. It's basically the Sister Abigail move.
Well, we'll see until a few days from now.
But that's true. But do you know what I mean? No one kicks out of that move. If he hits it, he always has where he tries to hit it and then it gets kicked, pushed out of or whatever. But I feel like he's the only one. And I guess the other one I could say is Kenny Omega did protect the One-Winged Angel pretty closely and didn't let people kick out of that. So,
yes.
But I do know that.
Yeah, that was huge.
Exactly. And so when it happened, it was huge. But I feel like that is a huge issue now, as Jay was saying. If you have a finisher, it needs to be a finisher. You cannot have people keep kicking out of those finishers.
Yeah, as far as I know, in my mindset, the only time you should kick out of matches is, and it was always the joke, is your WrestleMania moment. It's something big happening that, oh my God, someone finally kicked out of this.
Right.
Now it's, people are kicking out of moves left and right.
Or even protecting the old taking your time and do the arm the arm drag over them after a little while and then they kick out. You're still protecting the move, but just things like that. It makes it a little bit more, I think, effective. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. Earlier today, I was listening to Jim Ross grilling JR and it was Vengeance 2004. And it just happened that one guy finished it, started playing, I left it on, I was doing some work. And he was talking about a meeting that they called where the wrestlers were going to have to start sitting around watching the matches of the other guys because it became the moves didn't matter anymore. Mm. And he said, now you go into these locker rooms and the two guys are literally sitting there just memorizing move for move what they're going to do, whether or not the crowd is even giving a shit.
Yeah.
And it's that was 2000, that's 15 years ago, and we progressed or degressed to where we're at today, and it's the same thing,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I think I read something about that instead of communicating with each other, they're all remembering, okay, this is where I need to be, this is what I need to be doing, this is how I need it to be done, instead of just feeding off the crowd, hey, the crowd's really into this, let's keep going this, or hey, the crowd's not feeling this. Let's change it up.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in the olden days, the guys weren't even in the same locker rooms. They went back and forth and said, "Hey, you're going over, going to do this." The next thing you figure it out when you get out there.
Yeah.
Just don't do what the guys before you did.
Well, that's the art too. I think
together that actually had people involved and interested.
I think that's the problem with today. That I will say is that I think the art of calling it in the ring is no longer a thing. I think that you always hear the stories about the young guy who's having the wrestling match with the older guy. The older guy, the younger guy goes up to the guy and says, "Hey, what are we doing tonight? What are the spots? Blah blah blah." And he's like, "Just we're called in the ring." Right. And that terrifies a lot of the young guys because they don't know how to do that. And right. I think that's where, going back to your point, Jay, about being able to feel the crowd, that determines. I mean, I always think of you had your Andre Hogan match as kind of one of the pinnacles. For me, and I'm sure Josh can agree with this, is for me, one of ours was Rock Hogan.
Well, right. I was just saying,
at WrestleMania,
you know,
and that.
But that was also an old school build to it.
And they changed it in the ring.
Right.
They were supposed to go in where Hogan was the heel and Rock was the face.
Right.
They literally read the crowd within minutes of the match starting and completely flipped it and called it in the ring and flipped it. So, like, I feel like you wouldn't see that as often. I feel like most young wrestlers today would probably try to just be like, no, fuck it. Like, I'm supposed to be the good guy, so I'm going to be the good guy whether the crowd wants me to or not, and run it into the ground that way, you know?
Right.
Yeah. What other highlights? Go ahead, Josh.
It doesn't help when the owner of a said company also thinks that way. That if this guy's a good guy, I don't care what you fans think. And I think that's also playing a big role in this. I mean, he did quote unquote finally listen to us by turning Seth heel again and bringing up the point nowadays. But I mean, Seth's been getting booed for 6 months now.
Yeah. 4
or 5 months, and it now just took. Okay, we got to turn him now.
Right. Well, I mean, Vince always, he thinks he knows what people want, and sometimes he does, and a lot of times he doesn't. And he's made some big mistakes. The Luger Express, and he had Bret Hart sitting there the whole time, and then
and Shawn Michaels for that matter.
Right. Exactly. So. He thinks one way. And sometimes you have to just listen to your people.
I mean, you look at Cody as a great example. Cody was never expected to be seen as anything more than a mid to maybe high mid card act, and I mean, like they said, I mean, the whole point of why they did the Dustin, Gold Dust Cody match in AEW. One of the things they said was that Triple H and Vince McMahon said there's no money in that, and they, in my opinion, put on one of. I would argue the best match of 2019. One of at least the best matches of 2019.
But did it how much money did it draw? I mean, in reality, I know you're sitting. I mean, Cody is not a main event guy.
I think he is.
He's a main event guy because he's part owner of the company.
No, I disagree.
He's a main event guy because we believe he's a main event guy.
Yeah,
I've been in those crowds.
He is so over.
But I mean, in a crowd of how many people?
Thousands.
10,000 plus at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough for you to at least say that he was worthy of being in main event pictures because
but the crowd didn't get Daniel Bryan, right? Even though he got beaten 10 seconds at one of the WrestleManias, the crowd was behind him. They couldn't not go with him anymore.
We forced him into that.
Cody. I mean, and I like him. He seems like a nice guy, but I don't see him as a main eventer. I mean, I don't know.
I think
he's a smart guy.
Yeah,
buddied up to a billionaire, and he's smart. I mean, I don't know that he's going to ever be the main event at WrestleMania, even if he came back.
But the thing is he was never. It's hard for you to say that he's not a main event guy because he can't be in these crowds.
And Dustin, who's better, isn't a main event guy.
I would argue that Dustin isn't a main event guy. I feel like maybe Dustin could have. I don't even know if I would say he could have been a main event guy. I think that Dustin is easily a high mid card to low upper card. And I think that's fine and same. I think Cody has the ability to be a top card, and I think that it's kind of like what Josh and I were saying is because I only know this because I've been in at the shows and witnessed the feel in the crowd for Cody. It's the same as Jericho. And actually I would say obviously you would agree that Jericho is a big star. Right. He's an icon, he's a legend, and I would say that
personally,
Go ahead, Josh. What were you saying?
Hey.
We're missing you there. Go ahead. Your microphone keeps getting muted.
It's on mute.
Yeah.
You're able to hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. What were you going to say?
No. I said personally, I believe he's the GOAT, but that's just me.
He definitely is a candidate for it. But and Josh, you can agree with me on this. Is so in a crowd of maybe 10,000, maybe not quite the size of a WrestleMania crowd, but Cody got a bigger reaction than Jericho did. Cody was more over than Jericho was in that arena. And I think that says something, and it's not like a bullshit reaction. Like and I guess the other thing I always look for is like sustainability. Like how long does it go on? Like anyone can get a pop, and then like
and where was this at?
This was when I was in two places. One was when I went to DC for the first AEW show, the first Dynamite that they did, and like literally, I think I told you this. I have never been emotionally affected at a wrestling match. Maybe a little bit at some of the Philly crowds I've been to because you guys are like nuts and you get into it and there's an energy there. But this was the first time where I was literally I was moved to tears because when he came out to open up that show, just the energy and the feel from that moment was overwhelming. I would say the same thing with when I saw him in Baltimore at the pay-per-view. The reaction, and that was when he was going up against Chris Jericho, so I could see kind of, in comparison who was more over.
But are you like behind him because he's the spearhead of this organization that's the opposite of the big bad empire?
I mean, yeah, there's always...
What has he done to say he's a...
His promos. So I know I've told you this about the promo that he cut about his brother for that match.
Right.
Incredible. The promo that he cut in the ring, I think it was the week of, or I think it was the week of that pay-per-view, where he basically talked about how he's not going to ever challenge for the title again if he loses.
Right.
That was incredible. Like, his promos are top-notch. His wrestling, I'm not going to argue with you, his wrestling is average. Maybe a little bit above average, but like I don't like where I would argue with like maybe like a Kenny Omega or even the Jericho, like the I wouldn't even say that, like probably Kenny Omega like as an example of someone who I feel like can wrestle very well. Whether or not he can translate his character and whatnot, his wrestling ability is very strong. Cody, I would say, is average. It's the same thing I would say with Jericho, where their ability to pull a crowd in, to sell a match, to make people feel invested in the match. Like, I can say with all honesty, as much as I like what AEW does, the majority of what I like is limited. And it's limited to those matches where I feel like there's a story being told and where I feel like I'm hooked. And so, like, without fail, if Jericho's on the screen, if Cody's on the screen, like, I know that I'm going to be invested in that match. Other matches, it's hit or miss,
Right.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, as long as you can admit that makes me feel better, because it's not like you're believing everything they...
Oh, no.
Because, like, in the ECW years in the beginning, the fans ate everything up, even though a lot of it was trash.
Yeah.
Garbage. Shitty wrestlers that Paulie made to seem like they were awesome, and they were awful. But he hid their faults. I guess I'm going to have to, watch some of... Cody's promos there and see what,
I'll send you some. I think you might find an appreciation for it. I mean, honestly, we always joke about it, but I don't know if AEW is ever going to be a thing for you, just because I think that there's what's lacking in AEW, which makes you not want to be a fan of it, is also present for me. Because I do love, I mean, like, I kind of walk both lines. I can really appreciate the athleticism and the flippy shit and all that. Like, I can appreciate that, but at the end of the day, I want story. I want a story that I can feel like I can invest in, and they don't have that very often. I think they're working on it. I think it's a tall order for them to create that within what they've been running for, I think, 3 months now.
I feel like they're kind of giving a lot of the things that they seemingly, have there, the Omega and Moxley, Cody and Dustin, they gave it away way too early. I guess they have to, in a way. But, I mean, I feel like you're blowing your load before what's left.
Yeah.
These guys have all pretty much wrestled, like, already.
Hey! There's Chris.
Yo. Hey, what's going on?
Chris, this is Jay. Jay, this is Chris.
Nice to meet you. Yo.
We're in the heat of it. Why don't you weigh in, buddy? What do you got? We've been debating this whole idea of storytelling of today and the new style of wrestling and whether it's good and whatnot. What are your thoughts?
There's really no storytelling. None of these guys know how to tell a story. There's a couple of guys. I mean, like Bray Wyatt is probably right now. He's telling the story because he's out of his mind. And, like, in this match that he had with The Miz, was, like, what he was doing was that he was telling the story of how he's crazy and The Miz is mad because He went after his family like that. Nobody did that in like a week. I don't know if they had to like jump into something like that, or they didn't have anything planned and they went with that. That's what I'm thinking. But at the same time, like he's the only one telling the story. I mean, what else do we have? We've got Baron Corbin putting dog food in a guy's mouth. That's a story they're telling right now with that. I'm like, oh, okay. I saw that like 10, 15 years ago. Honestly,
and he at least fed him the dog,
like
right?
Cool with the Viagra on a pole match. So that's what that is.
What's your thoughts on like AEW and stuff like that? NXT,
AEW, like the internet kind of ruined that for me because before that even started, everybody's like, "Oh, it's going to take down the mighty Fed. It's going to take down the E. It's going to do this. It's going to do that." I'm like, "Well, you haven't even had a show yet. What are you talking about?" Yeah, I mean, yeah, you got talent, but what are you going to bring to me that's different than anything else? And so far, I've seen nothing different. The one show that I finally got to watch was, because I don't have TNT, so I was at my mom's house. I turned it on, like, okay, let's see what they got. They started the show off with Virgil. Like, wait, what? Like,
oh, this is the celebration. Yeah.
But here we are recycling. This is what the E does. They go back and they recycle stuff like that. And the guy was reading off a napkin. Like, how am I supposed to get behind that? The guy's reading off a napkin. Even my mom's like, this is dumb. I gotta turn it off. My mother said that. My mother's easily amused that she had to turn it off. So.
What about NXT? Follow any NXT stuff?
Yes, NXT. I follow. I follow more than actually the main roster now. I really like it. I like UK stuff too. I'm not a big fan of like when they're having a really good match and everyone starts chanting like the entire match. I mean, that's a European thing. I get it, but it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to hear the Tyler Bate song the entire match. I remember years ago when Ricky Hatton was big in boxing, the UK fans would come to Vegas and they would like sabotage the whole arena and they would sing a Ricky Hatton Wonderland the entire fight, and it was so annoying. And that's kind of like that whole with Tyler Bate and Walter. It was such a fantastic match. Kind of ruined it for me because these guys wouldn't shut up. I get you're excited, but it's like, man, the same song over and over. It's like, sing a song about Walter, why don't you?
A lot of people say
then they're excited. They're not even into the match. They're just taking over. They want to be.
Yep.
They want to be the match. That's right.
Well, it's funny too is I'll say this.
Right after WrestleMania, like all the time, that's what they do because they know that they can get away with it now. So they're just going to do these chants. It's like when everybody was singing the Fandango song.
Yeah.
And I thought it was hilarious, but they sabotaged the show.
Well, what's funny too is
they tried doing that to Jericho, and Jericho pretty much knew a way to shut him down and did it.
Yeah.
But a whole lot of guys don't know how to do it. Like Charlotte Flair didn't know how to do it. She just was like getting frustrated, and she didn't know how to deal with it. Jericho knew how to deal with it. A lot of these people don't know how to deal with it. It's not their fault, but at the same time, it's you got to know when like the Rock knows how to shut it down. You know, I guess it's a talent. Some of these guys don't know it or don't want to do it. But
yeah. One of the things I was going to say was I was telling Jay I've been watching some of the old 1989 WWF stuff. And man, I don't know if it's because kayfabe is dead, but those crowds were consistently hot. Like consistently hot. Like throughout even like the jobber matches, like they were hot. And again, I'm guessing most of that is probably just because people still believed that it was real, or maybe even let themselves believe that it was real. Man, I get into the shows, these squash matches or these like I was saying, I was watching WrestleMania 5, and I got into it based on the fact that other people were getting into it. The crowd was hot, and I feel like that's something that's very absent today. Is there isn't a lot of hot crowds. Philly, man, I tell you, I've been to a bunch of Philly shows, and those Philly fans, man, they know how to bring it. Baltimore's kind of hit or miss for me. Cleveland's always been hit or miss for me. But I do think it's less and less that you have those hot crowds. Why do you think that is?
I mean,
who are you asking?
yeah,
Anyone.
It looks like
I'm just
four of us
yeah.
now, so.
Oh yeah, sorry, Joshua. This is Chris. Chris, this is Joshua.
Yo,
What's up, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my Yoda picture, like.
Oh, dude, Jay.
I don't know if you can see. I got Yoda behind me too, so it must be something with old school wrestling fans.
Yeah, we're all nerds here, so it's all right. I'm down with it.
So weigh in. What do you guys think about the crowds and like the fact that they're not? Go ahead.
Well, like you said, I mean, there's hot cities. Like Chicago will always be hot. New York will always be hot. Philadelphia will always be hot. And then there's other cities that you just go to that people aren't going to care because they have nothing to care about. Or they're given, as people will joke, they're given the B show. Or they're given the C show. Instead of, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to get to see the first Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns match, but it's also going to be the main event for the next 6 months before we actually get a payoff. So why should I care about this?
Yeah, but at the same time,
You say that growing up, the WWE, WWF had the same matches all around the country every night, and the people were insane. And you believed it, you thought it was real, and you got into it. And then, tonight it was in Philly, tomorrow it's in Jersey, and then it's in, LA, and it was like the people were into it. I mean,
But they very rarely had like actual like serious matches. Like because at least from maybe the house shows, but like from
well, that's all there was then. It was that's
Yeah.
what that's how they made their money.
you'd see so many jobber matches back then. That was like the way they did it, was build the jobbers and then have like the big payoff at the pay-per-views, which were like
And
once every
to
couple
see
of
good
months.
matches, you had to pay your money and go to the arena. That's how they made money.
So do you think part of it's overexposure then? That just because they
totally overexposure.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much like hitting it right on. I wanted to jump in, but I don't want to like cut everybody off. That's the thing. Like it would have like you would build guys up by having them like squash jobbers, but then you go on the internet and you get all these people crying, "Oh, it's this jobber. How come he doesn't wrestle anybody else?" I'm like, did you even watch wrestling back in the late '80s, early '90s? That's how you got guys over. You had a whole superstars full of like the superstars against the jobbers. That was their job.
Iron Mike Sharp.
You had like one marquee match where it'd be like Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Kamala. That would be your marquee match of the night, and that made sense. That was your Saturday morning, and I was down with it. I'll watch it right now.
right? Yep.
That's exactly what I want to see. That's the way you build guys up, and now you got like these super talented jobbers, like Dolph Ziggler. He's a jobber. That guy is way too talented to be a jobber. Like, why? Why does that guy got to lose to everybody?
Right.
And then you got like guys like Roman Reigns who just beats up on everybody. He's talented. I mean, I think he gets a lot of crap because he got pushed out there and everyone shits on him. Mm-hmm. Can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
I probably should have got that beforehand, but he gets a lot of crap, and it's not all his fault. He got pushed out there. He's not going to say no. Like, oh, I'm not ready for the big time yet. You don't do that. You don't do that in business. Like, you're going to be a top guy. He gets thrown in there. But at the same time, this crowd, they just like turn against them because that's not what they want. But then when you ask them what they want, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because I've actually asked someone that. I'm like, well, you don't want this guy. Well, who do you want then? And then I get crickets. And oh, well, I get how about Kevin Owens? I'm like, what about him? Like, he held the Universal belt and did very well with it. It was pretty much Jericho was pretty much with that, and that's like what they were going with. The guy couldn't hold it on his own, so I'm like, well, I mean, I think he might be able to do it down the road, but I mean, he kind of got thrown in there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, other than like Roman Reigns, who do you think could be like the big face of the company? I mean, I mean, because they're not really pushing anyone.
No,
they got a whole year to do it, and you got Brock Lesnar who's never there. He can't be the face.
Yeah, Josh, what
as
were
much
you
as
going
I
to say?
want him to be, I can't see him as the face because he's never there.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's the problem. Vince has not made stars. And he's still relying on some of these old guys to come back, such as in the past, he's used Goldberg 3 times over the past year, including just like 5-second squashes, which don't get me wrong, I marked out like crazy when Goldberg beat Lesnar like that.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was at work and someone told me about that. And I like went on there. I'm like, man, I only got like half an hour break, and it was like only like 5 minutes. Like, well, that works.
Dude, I literally turned the show off at that point, like before he came out, because I was like, I'm a teacher, so I usually have to go in early. So I was like, you know what, this match is gonna go for a while, so I'll watch it tomorrow morning. And and then I woke up the next morning. They're like, yeah, it lasted like 5 minutes. I'm like, what? And then I had to go back and look. Yeah, that was a crazy night.
It's just I just like you said though, there is no stars. There's nobody cares about anybody anymore. We get our internet darlings, including I'll be the first to admit. We were talking about it earlier with the AEW crowd. Well, is Cody over with the AEW crowd? Yes. Is Cody ever going to be over with the WWE crowd? Probably not.
So there you go, Jay.
It's just not who he is.
I mean, is that his fault though? I mean, I feel like some of these guys could really, really get over. I mean, you got a guy like Rusev, who has had the whole Rusev Day thing going on. Guy was outselling everyone's T-shirts. So when you go to the arena, they wouldn't even have a match on. People start chanting Rusev Day. Mm-hmm. And it was loud and it was deafening, especially in Philadelphia at the Royal Rumble. I mean, he wasn't even out yet, and they were chanting it. Lana was out there, they were chanting it. Ian English was out there, were chanting it. But what did you do with him? Yep. You did absolutely nothing with it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he's still being punished for his stuff going out on social media. Social media is a problem with all that. That's kayfabe too. I mean, the guy's has his own life to live too. So I don't really think he should be punished for that.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy got over. The guy is going to make you money because people are into it.
Yeah.
And then you did nothing with it. You buried it and you put it in the ground. And he's starting to build himself up with this crap feud with Bobby Lashley, which people want that killed. And at the same time, that's straight out of the Attitude Era, which everyone's crying about bringing it back. Yeah. It's the same thing.
In WWE's defense, though, I mean, you look at, you mentioned earlier Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. I mean, that was a hot angle, and they did run with it. I think they ran with it a little too early, but I think that at least that's an example of them getting behind something that was over, and kind of put him in that position to now be over. You know, that's at least something. But I do hear what you're saying. Jay, what do you think, kind of going forward, what do you think is going to be, I guess my question would be, do you think we'll ever be able to try to return to what was, or do you think it will just be, this is what it is, and it's just going to change and get different and different over time?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to go back. But like even everything you guys were all just talking about, about getting over and making money, and they're making crazy money. They're making tons and tons of money. It doesn't seem like these guys are, superstars like they're on TV Guide like they were with The Rock and Stone Cold era. But the company itself is making, 10 times more money than it did then. So we're all sitting around, bitching and moaning, and they're happy with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's an issue, you know what I mean? When 2 million people tune into a show on Fox compared to 7 million that used to tune in Monday Night Raw.
But where do you think those fans have gone? That's always the question, is where have those fans gone?
There's too much wrestling to follow. You don't need, 12 hours of WWE a week. You don't have that guy. You don't have the Stone Cold or anything really fun to get behind. People my age just don't care. What's that?
Oh, I said a lot of like Fairweather fans, they left with Stone Cold and they left with The Rock, and then they never came back. Because I've had so many conversations with people like, you watch wrestling? I used to. Steve Austin was real big, and I don't really follow it anymore. And I've had that conversation with more than once. That has a lot to do with it. Like, Steve Austin was so hot, everybody wanted to see what he was doing. That was the same with Goldberg, too. When he had that streak going on, everyone wanted to see what he was going to do next. Then when he lost and he started talking, no one really cared for him anymore.
Yeah, like, how do you follow The Rock and Stone Cold? I mean, you got the two. I mean, how do you follow The Rock? I mean, it's just.
Oh, I know. I still watch his promos. All the time. That he's ridiculous. His talent was, just ridiculous.
Even us wrestling fans followed him to the movies. Like, there's a reason why he is the number one action actor out there right now. People are paying for him just to be in a little scene.
Right.
Because he makes money. It's what he has always done. It's what he always will do. But then there's also people like us who are going to follow him everywhere. I would have no interest going to see Jumanji 2.
I saw it.
Gotta go see it because The Rock's in it.
It's worth it. It's fun. Anything with him and Kevin Hart, I'll throw money at.
Danny DeVito's in it. And I'm a Danny DeVito guy. That guy's got a direct line to my funny bone. So yeah, Roxanne act like Danny DeVito. I'm there. I just haven't had time. I still got to see Star Wars. So
so do I. I still got it too. What's the chance that two guys with Yoda in their backgrounds didn't see the movie yet?
And what's the chance that I've never seen
I work too damn much is what my so.
Well, this seems like a good point to kind of wrap it up. I think. Can
I bring up a quick point?
Do it.
With the moves, sets, and everything these guys are doing. Now think about you know where we met at these conventions. We see these guys that are older, beaten down, right?
Mm-hmm.
The day that we met, you remember like we were standing there with like Nikolai Volkov. Remember in Dreamer?
Yep.
And he was 70 years old or whatever. He died a couple years after that, but like he was still, he looked like a grandpa, right? Yeah. He never did any crazy moves, but he was, worn down. You see Greg the Hammer Valentine walking through that convention can barely move.
Mm-hmm.
Greg the Hammer Valentine, I'll bet he was up on the top rope as much as me or you. In his career.
Yeah.
He wasn't a flyer. The years and years and years of that matches every night beat these guys down where they can barely, move. What are these young guys going to be like when they're not 60, when they're in their 40s, doing the flips and just doing everything physically possible for the crowd, and the crowd just sits on their hands and doesn't even appreciate it.
I think it's a cautionary tale. I think what you're saying is very sound, but I would like to throw out there just the idea of like someone like AJ Styles. AJ Styles, and I think obviously AJ has learned to kind of tame his repertoire as far as what he does, but he was that guy, early Ring of Honor, early TNA, he was that guy doing those crazy spots. Rey Mysterio is another example. Both those guys are well into their late 40s now.
Both early 40s.
Is it early?
Yeah, early 40s.
Okay. But if time says.
But if the things that Styles did 15 years ago in Ring of Honor, compared to what some of these guys are doing now, they've even taken it up a notch.
That's true.
And if you see Styles wrestle in a house show for WWE, you're not getting anything, He's there, he comes out, the music, he does a couple things, and it's like, he's smart enough. He's not giving away to, save the big moves, the big matches, and that's the smart way to do it.
Yeah.
And mentioning Styles isn't always the greatest idea because he does have a really bad back. A really bad back. That has kept him out for quite a while because of his youth and the dumb things he did. So
there you go.
I can vouch for that. Going to those conventions and seeing some of those guys, it kills you. It's like, man, I idolize that guy. I looked up to that guy, like especially the ECW conventions.
Yeah.
Personally, seeing some of those guys, the Rock and Roll and Stress are still doing it, but looking at those guys still sometimes it's just like, man, I don't know how they're moving.
What's funny too is literally Jay. Obviously, I met Jay at the Philly conventions that they have at the ECW arena, and every time we go, I literally play the game of, and we both do, but I stick to it pretty closely. I need to get the autographs from the guys who are like knocking on death's door, and every year we go. Every year without fail at this point. It's sad to say, but there's a curse with that because every year we've gone, one of the wrestlers who was there dies, usually like a couple months after the convention.
You stay away from funk, you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that, Jay, but the convention in April, they announced that Terry Funk's going to be there.
Yep, and Angle.
Yep.
Yeah. Abdul, so you got a couple guys that might not make it out of this.
Chris, what do you got? What do you want to say about this?
Well, I know you guys got a lot more time than I do. I'm a third shift guy, so I don't have time to get to conventions and meet these guys. Probably the most popular guy that I've met is probably Steve Austin and Triple H.
Oof, those are both.
There's no name fest right before WrestleMania 18, back in 2002.
Man, those are on my bucket list.
Yeah, 2002. I went to Mania. So those guys were all in their prime. Other than that, I really haven't met any old stars from the 80s and what they look like now. But I've seen pictures on the internet of what they look like. They look awful.
Yeah.
And what you were saying, what are these younger guys? What are they going to do now? And unfortunately, they get addicted to painkillers, and they're in rehab, or you hear about them dying on there. I mean, you've heard it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, good examples like Garrison Cade, young kid, big buck. I mean, it was pretty much, you just had injuries, and it was painkillers and alcohol, and I mean, that does these guys in. It's really a shame, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, they knew what they were getting into when they got into it. But I think at the same time that the WWE should have a better like healthcare program for them. They shouldn't be independent contractors.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Union.
I think that's probably a discussion for another show, because
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably spend like an hour or two on that alone.
Or even
But,
off
I mean,
seasons.
that's
I've always
pretty much.
An off season I think would help too. Just having like a summer season be like new kids and bring the old, the old hands back in like, SummerSlam into the next season, because I think the schedule just kills them too. And then they still run house shows. Like Jay, you mentioned like how much money they're making. Like, do you think they're really making much money on house shows at this point?
Oh, yeah, not now, but that's how. Well, I mean, now it's I think it's ingrained that that's the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's how money was made in wrestling up until.
But
now.
today, there's no
That's
reason for it. Like today, it's like you put these people on these schedules where they're flying from place to place to come to these house shows, and it's like you're not. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't feel like they're making much money on those house shows.
Right. Well, they used to, would draw 10, 12,000 or more to these, major cities, and it was worth doing.
Yeah.
Like in Philly, we would always have a matinee, and they would leave and go to a show at night. And this is, when I was in high school, early 90s, they were running 2 shows on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
They weren't doing it to draw 2,000 people like you hear now that they're doing. But yeah, I mean, they probably need to just kill a bunch of those shows off and just do TV. And if they're going to make money, if their main money's coming in off these TV deals, just focus on that and keep the guys, healthy. But at the same time, how do the young guys learn if they're not wrestling? It's a catch. You can't just do moves in the empty in the garage at the performance center. People have to you got to hear the crowd. You got to
feel the energy.
What are you supposed to do? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. I think that's a good stopping point. Thanks, guys, all of you for checking in. I'm going to wrap this up, but then hopefully you guys stay on the line just for a couple minutes. But thanks again, all of you, for joining, and hopefully you guys will be on again pretty soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Sorry I was so damn late, but
Hey, it's life, man.
Parents, so.
All right, that does it for us on Wrestling Among Friends, episode 9. Hopefully you enjoyed. As I always said, please give me your feedback on what you thought, what segments you enjoyed, if there's segments that you would prefer to hear. My hope is to kind of continue this format with occasional highlights from upcoming pay-per-views or recapping pay-per-views, and then obviously having a regular AEW, NXT, WWE segment. So if there's other segments that you would like to have on there, I will try to cover that as well. All right, so thanks again for listening, and I'm going to let Macho Man lead you out here.